What's up, everybody? Do we have any sound? I don't know. Do we have sound? Yes. Do you want to play? Hey, brother. If I wanted to play, would I host an analysis stream? No. I hate playing with you guys. That's for tomorrow. Alright, folks. Brother. Oh, brother. Something seems wrong. I can't figure out what it is. Something seems incorrect around here. I really don't know what it is. I can't figure it out. Like when I do en passant and took the wrong pawn. I don't know what it is that's not right. Gotta remember to do the be right back button. Be right back. Hey, we'll be right back. Alright guys, so it was just, I don't know, I'm like sleepy, there's a weird feeling because of the holidays. There's also this like weirdness in the fact that I'm not streaming Wednesdays anymore, and I used to. Having a day off, a down day. Blackburn took someone's drink they left on pre's. Really? Is this a real story or something you made up? Okay, guys, where's Mr. Coffee, by the way? Mr. Coffee was supposed to play in a tournament this weekend. He's not. Is he here? You want to see some boring perfect game I played? Or that fun game from your simul? What are you drinking? The boring perfect game? Alright. So I've got a game from Mr. Slow, a game from Nefedov, a game from Bogachog, a game from Astrobate. I think we'll warm up with Astrobate's game. You surprise me. Surprise me. Are you sure you're playing enough? B-Jock. Rebel Wilson versus Pavel Nefedov. I'm going to start with the Astrobate game. Then we're going to go to... we'll see if Mr. Slow shows up. We got Hot Dog. We'll see who shows up today. Alright, Brinkman. The Matterhorn. Astrobate versus Matter, baby. Let's take a look at this one first. Schumacher, whatever. They're both good with me. I think I'd rather see an interesting game than a boring one of any kind. Boring perfect or boring not perfect, but boring is boring by definition. So let's stay away from boring because I'm already feeling sleepy. We've got knight f3, f6. I just want to know why would anyone play this? It's like some online bullshit, right? To be fair, knight f6. Sorry, knight f3, f6 is not that completely stupid. You dominate the knight on f3. I mean, there's some sort of twisted logic to this. Black can tend to develop with knight h6, knight f7, maybe. In that sense, Hans played d4. If Hans plays e4, by the way, Black can play knight h6. They don't have to play e5 and transpose to the Damiano defense. I think probably knight h6 is Black's best move here. So, in a way that makes sense. And Hans's choice is what a normal computer would play. All right. Speaking of Hans, a lot of people are talking about how he got to 2700 from 2450 or whatever. But I think what's even more interesting is how did he go from, how did he get to 2465 in the first place when he seemed like just kind of an irrelevant, big mouth guy before? That was kind of weird. Alright, anyway, f6 b3 from Astrobate. This isn't really appropriate, Astrobate. Are you sure we haven't seen this game already? I feel like you submitted another game like this. I feel like I'm having a Groundhog Day again, where I'm talking about the same game twice, like has happened before. Why play b3 against f6? Just it's coincidence you submitted two games with the same variation? I feel like this move is practically almost justifying f6, to be perfectly honest. So the computer's move is clearly the best. d4 stops e5. You know, d5 can be answered by a very strong c4 here. I just want to meet. I really want to meet these people who are rated 2405 and play such things with black. You know, if I played against Anna Sargsyan, I would be like 2500 and a GM already. Or Hans' opponent here, 2304, who plays f6 on move 1. Why don't I meet these opponents? You know. All right, b3, bad move. Very ineffectual here against f6. Now black really should play e5, I think. Welcome everybody to our weekly analysis stream. I'm International Master William Pascal, aka Sladgie, and I'm falling asleep. My opponent left a glass of whiskey en prise, and I took an absent, Joseph Henry. All right. So now black plays d6. It's very hard to understand, you know, why one would choose to play d6. Black can play e5. That move seems very consistent. c5 maybe, d5. But I don't really get d6. I mean, e5 is already super protected. So now this bishop is becoming like very much blocked. Bishop is blocked in both directions. Bishop b2, very little effect here. Both sides playing questionably. Knight c6, and then e3. e3 is okay. e3, you're being consistent with your opening setup. Obviously, it's possible to play e4. And then black just totally random move. Bishop f5. So that's a nice diagonal you've got there. So what do you want to do? You've got bishop b5, c4, bishop d3, trying to highlight maybe like the weakness on the white squares. The provocative knight h4. Acerbate. You could have played this right away with knight h4, a move earlier, and if bishop here, they could meet like queen b5 check with bishop f7, I guess. So even at this point, you could consider knight h4, but I'm not sure, you know. Maybe knight h4, f4 with a Dutch flavor. Knight h4 may be justified. Maybe on knight h4, he should play bishop d7 and just say, okay, I made a mistake. No, he can't because of bishop, this weakness here. This loses. So on knight h4, this move can be answered by d3. This is the only move for black, and now f4. Not queen h5 check. And black comfortably plays this. You play f4 with a good Dutch. I mean, white has comfortable advantage here. Okay, bishop f5, c4. You don't have a problem, sir. Remember how often you play, you know, you like to play a3 in this type of setup? Black has knight d4. You can guard the c2 square. You can actually play d3. Yeah, d3 seems to shut it down. Alright. So it's not a problem. e5. This is the best moves we've seen in a while. And now white plays knight h4. But this move is more difficult to justify now. Now that he can pull his bishop back to e6, it's a little harder to justify. You know, he's not blocking the e-pawn. You should have played it earlier. You play it on the previous move. Now he has time to play this and everything's under control. What are you supposed to play now? Black's position is almost normal at this point. Almost like some kind of normal closed setup. You waited too long to pull the trigger on knight h4. And you pulled it too late. But then black makes the unthinkable g6 move, which just loses. So a total blowout on the white squares. check, king e7, and now you didn't take the pawn. You have better ideas. Knight c3, very powerful threat of knight d5 check. So here, and then castles queen side. This is covered, you're developing, nice job. Guarding d5, kicking back, and then he just gives you a piece. Okay then. Apparently your opponent didn't know that it was legal to play knight a6. So he decides to play knight d5, losing a piece for nothing. Okay. And now for our final trick, double check. Do we have anything tricky? Anything tricky? Queen f5, queen f7. Double check is knight f4. Double check is knight c7. He's getting away. Ugh. So at this point now, he's just losing a rook. But instead you played bishop d5 check, which doesn't even really work. Takes. And you're up enough anyway. Alright. Not a very elegant, end of the game or anything. And now that's a nice last move. Okay, the end of the game is nice, but Astrobate, that was kind of ugly by your opponent. It's just hard to understand people. Why would anybody play g6 here? Just the magnitude of this mistake, this one move mistake, is basically going from equal to -5 in one move after g6. Let's see what the computer says. At this point, white is better by half a pawn. At this point, yeah, white is better by 5. So that's a lot. Alright guys, happy holidays. What's up? So, game over there. We got Kurt Richter versus Brinkman from Mr. Slow. Tomorrow we're going to be hosting Blitz Challenges in the morning. Where's Mr. Coffee? Mr. Coffee, wake up! Time to wake up! Mr. Coffee, supposed to play in a tournament, and he's not here. So he's playing hooky from his tournament, which I assume had to do with bad weather. He didn't want to drive. But he's been a bad boy lately. He's missed a lot of tournaments in the last 6 months to a year. And we need to encourage Mr. Coffee to get back into it. Alright, so what's up, Astrobate? Can I? Question, are there no Wednesday streams anymore? Jeez. The popular Wednesday stream? Anonymous player. Yeah, no more Wednesday streams. It was too many people, My viewership is 9 players on Wednesday morning. Exactly, no more streams on Wednesdays. That's not the way to play the Italian. You got crushed in 20 moves. This is from Morales. Alright, analysis board. Yeah, Wednesday stream. Oh, God. He's submitting bullet games now. Wednesday streams died. They were dying very slowly over a course of years. I really don't know why I'm so freaking sleepy. Alright. So, Morales, I'm talking about Mr. Coffee not going to an over-the-board tournament. Morales has reached the point, and then he's like, can I? Don't do that. Don't do that. Warrior, you're going to get in trouble. Only English. Get my game. I think I'm having a blood sugar meltdown. You know, I submitted because it was very bad opening play. Or else we gotta, like, forcibly make you play real chess or something. I don't know what to do. We dropped Wednesday streams because there wasn't enough viewers. For some reason, Wednesday was the worst. I would stream at 11 o'clock, and I would have, like, a maximum of 12 viewers. You were one of the 12 viewers on Wednesdays, anonymous player. I don't know why. Can you send a game? Yes. 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 I don't know. I need, like, another coffee. I had a coffee, like, 2 hours ago. I think I need another one. I'm, like, falling asleep. All right. How many coffees can I drink one day? So, let's do Warrior's gonna submit a game. What do you guys want to do? Okay, hot dog. Hot dog's in Australia. Did I get your game? Are you freaking kidding me, bro? Are you chat banned? How can I get your game? I have to go and get it? Because your notifications never show up? Alright. I don't understand why Schumacher is, like, chat banned. There. I never get notifications when he sends me something. Other people, it, like, pops up like a notification. Don't understand why that is. It's like your settings or something? It must be your settings. I can send. You can send. Yes. Wake up! Alright. I don't know what to do. I can't wake up. Just been really sleepy weather here, I guess. Dark. Mr. Coffee, you are in trouble. I want to see a permission slip from your doctor. Mr. Coffee was excused from holiday tournament due to the local river flooding its banks or something. We're gonna put you in chest detention with with move 11. You guys, like, combined have more excuses than the average human being for not playing in tournaments. All right, what do we want to do now? I'm gonna save Kurt Richter in case Mr. Slow comes by. We'll do hot dog because he's in Australia, and I doubt. I don't know what time is it. Lionel Chissy says, what? A little sus comment. Whatever that is. Uh-oh. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, other chess girls. A little misogynistic. Is that what you're trying to say? Sus comment? Well, yeah. I agree, you know. The Botez sisters and what's his face? That Gotham chess have nothing to do with chess. This doesn't have to be about sex, you know. It has to be about people who make chess content, who just make trashy sort of chess content. It doesn't have to be about girls or one particular sex. I think men are equally capable of making very shitty chess content that's basically lacking in actual content, you know. All right, Pandaroo. Why am I so sleepy? This is Hot Dog's game. Another B3. No, that was just a coincidence. How did that get in there? All right, so knight F3, D4, knight on BD2. The Kali system. This is a submitted game from Bogachog, aka Hot Dog 12. Hot dash dog 12. So now the opponent played c6. Not particularly any reason to play c6, okay? And then e4. Because why not? Alright. Kali, the goal of the Kali system is to really, or Kole, or whatever, is to play for e4. Way to save time and not playing e3 here. Both sides have a reasonable position. Okay, c3. Basically, it's a minor defense. Castles, bishop d3. And now black decides to play d5. I mean, I would think, like, in most cases, black would prefer to play something flexible in this spot. So I would think, like, d6 would be best. That's what Eddie did? No, Eddie was white in a game in 1978. Okay. So d5 seems to make it easy for white. You know, I mean, you're like, okay, push. I have had this type of position before, once against Joel Benjamin, which is oddly a London system. I mean, I could easily have, that bishop could easily be on f4, for example, although it's not the optimal square against the modern, let's say, Gurgenidze system. Bishop's outside the pawn chain. But I like it here, e5. This could be a Caro-Kann exchange variation, if I exchange pawns, obviously. But this is an inferior move. Just saying, like, this is still a relatively equal position. Though I would like to have the pawn. Yeah, it's a pawn. The bishop outside the pawn chain. Alright, e5 is best. And then black plays a bad move here. Well, I mean, I don't like d5. I don't like d5 in the first place because, you know, you're just walking right into e5, basically, and you don't have a good follow-up against e5. You have a choice of like 4 bad squares for the knight, where you simply have less space. It's like, why do that? Why not just play d6 and play something more fluid? So I agree with white's play here. E5 is best, and then I would think like knight e8, maybe knight e8, knight c7. Black's counterplay has to kind of hinge on f6 and c5, some kind of active breaks against the white center. Unblocked you. Oh, okay, unblock you. Yes, I can do that. You did something bad to get blockulated. Alright, let's see. What are you, the warrior? Oh, man. How am I going to find you? There's like 8 million warriors. How the hell am I going to unblock you? What about if I check our team? Recent members. Didn't you join my team? Like, there you are. Yeah. Oh, okay. You're unblocked. Alright. You've been unblocked. Yeah, so bad Caro-Kann Gurgenidze, but black needs to play for f6, c5 type of breaks. If possible. If he can't, then he's just going to play with less space, period. But this seems like a bad move. I mean, knight g4. I can't even imagine how going here, inducing white to play like h3 and possibly g4 would have a plus effect for black. Here, and now we've got to seriously consider g4. You don't have to play g4, but it's an option. Perhaps too risky, perhaps justified. No, I think this needs to be seriously considered. I don't know where the hell you're going to castle, or if you're going to castle at all, but this is a real problem. I would say the knight on h6 is a serious issue, and it's hard to get it back via f7 or g8. So you should probably do this, and then evaluate, I guess, f6. I'm not sure. Maybe it's too risky. I don't know. I'm suspicious of black's position after h3, knight h6. I don't think there's anything wrong with what you did, though. You know, knight f1 isn't a bad move. So basically transposed. Yeah, now you're getting really close to my game with Joel Benjamin. It was very similar to this with the London bishop on f4. That was a game I don't know where the game score is. It was like 20 years ago. G5. G5 doesn't look too safe for black. This looks bordering on insane. G5 is very risky for black. I mean, he should definitely play, I guess, knight f7. Now, my question here for you is, like, we gotta make a tough decision about which way to retreat the bishop here. Instead, you didn't, but realistically, your position is too good to sacrifice a piece here. Would be the way I would describe this sacrifice here. The problem often arises when we don't know how good our position is. I think white has a very good position, like a solid edge, and it just doesn't call for sacrificing a piece. The move isn't necessary, and it's like going too far. In general, 99% of tactics don't work, and this is one of the 99%. But here it's just not called for. You know, your game is too good. If you go back to h2, you keep e5, you know, controlled, and you should be fine. I can't justify this move. You know, black just further weakens his position. On the other hand, you could consider maybe moving the bishop back on the other diagonal as well, but e5 won't be as well supported. Mircea the best, rating with a party of 19. What's up? Grandmaster Mircea Parligras from Romania. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. Thanks for the raid. Grandmaster raid in the house. Nice to see you back streaming. Yeah, I noticed you were on. Welcome raiders. Welcome everybody from his stream. Guys, what's up? New Year's almost here. What's happening? What are you up to? I saw some tournaments. Occasionally I notice he's playing some tournaments, winning some tournaments. There. The shout out was given to Mircea the Best. So one of the strongest players in Romania. Thank you very much for joining us. I don't know if you guys remember back a few years ago during COVID, we had a lot of team battles. Of course, you know, he's been one of the best and most active players in the COVID era. Team battles with his team, the Beasts, the Beast from the East. So thank you for the raid. Good to see you back on online. And I saw actually yesterday, I saw Tranquilizer logged on. Haven't seen him in a long time. Your countryman. So guys, thank you to Mircea for joining us. He hasn't been streaming lately. He's doing like real life, you know, chess work, like actually playing and winning in tournaments. So that's cool. awesome raid there. So check him out, guys. Twitch.tv/Merchea the best. We've got we got to call him the Beast though. The Beast from the East. I ran into him at the Hungarian team championship, the Hungarian chess team championship last year, but not a lot of time to chat there. All right. So yeah, I think this is like a matter of panicking. Bishop h2 looks really solid. I think white has a huge advantage here. Bishop h2, knight e3. Your biggest question really is like where you're going to put your king, and I think in most cases you're going to castle king side. You know, he's also compromised his position. Sorry, he's compromised his king side. h7 is really weak, so you're doing something that a lot of people do. In a sense, like being too aggressive. This is something I see a lot. This is Hot Dog's game. When in doubt, it seems like most players are too aggressive, and also they don't remember the rule that 99% of tactics don't work. You know, just appreciate your advantage, be more patient, look for like quiet moves. Most of the time, you know, it's important to calculate. You have to calculate these sacrifices, right? But is it really justified to sacrifice a piece here when you have a good position to begin with? You've got two pawns. It looks like they can protect h7, so it stops with just two pawns. It's not clear to me that you maybe have enough compensation for the sacrifice, so it's unnecessary fancy chess. All right. Anyway, here we go. Sacrifice a piece for two pawns. Black's king side is somewhat compromised. There's a threat of bishop h7, knight h7, f5 will guard the threats in the diagonal, and if we take, knight takes, knight e6. Now, I don't know if this was your idea, but you know, when you calculate this, it's pretty complex. Thanks, Staffvargan, for gifting tier 1 sub to Merchea, Mr. Grandmaster. Staffvargan, thanks for being here, by the way. Guys, don't forget he can take with a rook, and then this doesn't win the exchange. I love white's position still. You know, white has a good position, probably compensation, you know. But I think what you're getting here is unclear. You're doing something I did when I was younger. You're sacrificing to go from like better to unclear. You know, it doesn't make sense really. GMD virtually. It doesn't make sense to sacrifice from position of clear advantage to get unclear. You know, it's possible that you're still better here, but I just think it's unnecessary. Takes here, bishop f5, and now you moved away, which is very costly in terms of time. And I think that this bishop might be able to drop back to g6. Still, white's pawn chain is very powerful. To be fair to the guy who submitted this game, Hot Dog, he's got pretty good compensation for the piece, but I still argue that objectively it wasn't necessary to sacrifice a piece here. That would be my judgment. This is a costly move in terms of time. You know, so I thought you would be taking on f5. That would bring his knight back in the game, but he loses an exchange there, and now you have material advantage. So I don't think he can do that, honestly. I mean, if you're going to be worried about this, you know, here you also have knight e6, maybe knight h7, but the most important thing is that your pawns are going to start rolling. You have a very good position on the king side. So I think this is also a mistake. Coming back, you have an advantage in any case, and now queen d2. Defending the knight, unfortunately necessary here, and this is really strong. This 4 on 2. No, I learned something interesting. Studying the Balkans. You're too late for your suggestion. No, I saved it for you. Actually, I thought you would come, Mr. Slow, so I decided not to do it right away. Larry Christensen constantly makes reference to this thing he calls the student body attack. And someone was asking about it on the stream the other day, and I was like, oh yeah, that's just what he's talking about, like when there's like a student revolution or something. But I was reading this book about the history of the Balkans, and I feel like there may have been an actual student body, like revolution or something like that, like Larry's referencing. But in any case, this isn't really a student body. This is the pawn body. Student body attacks when you overwhelm the opponent, like with pieces in one area of the board. The pawns would make better students, in my opinion. But anyway, this pawn majority is extremely strong. Now, I like rolling here with f4. I want to get the f4, f5. This is a natural advance here. h4 is not bad though, and I think it's like almost unstoppable, the whole thing, essentially. You can't stop f4. You can make this argument. You can still play f4, and you did, and it's now like, yeah, beautiful pawn, pawn chain, we should say, for Bobachuk here. Like the entire thing is very strong. Although Black now really, misses an important opportunity. I think he has to take. And you should be glad he can take, because taking forces you to make some kind of concession. If you take with the H pawn, these are doubled. And if you take the other way, it's even worse, where you would actually cut your pawn chain in half. So I think you're making a concession there, and Black should have taken. Instead, he plays this, which makes the situation worse. So there were lots of like little mistakes in this game. Lots of them. Like, why don't you take here? This is crushing. I mean, knight takes e4, pawn takes e4. This pawn is gone. And then it's just the wave, You've got everything. Black would have to sacrifice two pieces to kind of break out, I think. One wouldn't even be enough. He like literally has to sacrifice two pieces on e5. So this is unnecessary. Rook h2. And you're still clearly better in all variations. Black goes back. And you're one move away from total annihilation. Just need to get in f5, and it's over, but you blundered now? No, this is a calculated decision, but I'm not sure it's a good idea. White plays bishop d3, trying to enforce f5, but does that make sense? Does this actually work? When I play bishop d3, you can play bishop d3, queen d3. His opponent can play take, take, take. And now, after queen takes check, the question is, do I have anything here with white? I'm not real sure that we have anything. Knight f7. Knight f7. Knight h5. Sorry, we have knight h5 at some point. But it doesn't seem to do anything, This is a big error. All you need to do is find a way to push through f5. I mean, if you play rook f2, can he stop f5? He's going to have to sacrifice a knight. He's going to have to sacrifice a piece, either on f5 or on e5, to stop your pawn avalanche. But this may be a mistake. As he played it, it looks bad. He's getting avalanched. Now he absolutely has to sacrifice a piece. E takes f5, G takes f5, and I decides to do it. But I mean, this is sacrificing two pieces. Now he takes c5, isn't it? Maybe not. All right. Maybe not. It's not, because this is hanging with check. So I hope you didn't go too far here, too quickly. Maybe you rushed it. You could build up. I know you don't want to have the rook here, because that rook is naturally placed on the h file, but What you really need is the other rook. You need an extra move. Yeah, so this was a little premature. The opponent's able to sacrifice successfully back, and this looks unclear now. Black has very nasty pin here. We can't just simply move the knight. The e-file is opened up, or we're not castled. And even though we're getting that bishop on g6 likely is trapped, it's not guaranteed to fall either. So I'm pretty concerned about this whole situation. What if we castle, then we get nailed with bishop f4. So, for example, castles queenside, bishop g3, pawn takes g6. But now his queen is hanging, so he can't play bishop f4 or bishop takes rook. So this actually looks pretty interesting. After bishop takes e5, you saw this was hanging with check. And taking on g6 drops the guy with check, and then your king is trapped in the middle of the board. You're going to d1, whatever. Or d1, d2. But why don't you castle here? Bishop takes f5, knight takes f5. Threatening knight h6 check. Bishop takes g3, pawn takes g6. Now black has to play pawn takes g6. And then here black's threatening bishop f4, so maybe we have a problem anyway. Let's see. Rook h6, bishop f4. Rook takes g6 check. Rook takes g6 check, not clear. This is pretty bad. We don't want to lose the exchange. So bishop takes g3, takes. We need to find a move now. Doesn't look good. This doesn't look good. You know, it just doesn't look good. Me! No, I don't know what to do. This is a problem. Like, white has a serious problem. We're just gonna lose the exchange. And we just don't have any... We don't have enough for it, essentially. It looks like white is lost, simply put. So it's not good enough. Castling is not good enough. So you take... No, you play queen g2. Okay, this is a sensible move. Queen g2, threatening to castle. Black plays this. Check, takes, check. I don't know about that move. I mean, black has the ability to play bishop h5 in some positions. Black also has the ability to take here. Can someone explain to me why he can't take on f5? Can you go back a second to that? This, I love this. Oh, the position with rook f8. Rook f8. Rook f8 is a long time ago. This looks... Black has easier. Why doesn't he just take here? Okay, whatever. I mean, check is fine. Check and take, and white is probably lost. Though maybe this gives white a little extra chance. Oof. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, black could just take right away. How does, like, checking and forcing white's king to a safer position, connecting his rook to the rest of the game, help black, ultimately? This guy could have just simply taken. And on rook f2, then we have a check. Or whatever. You wanted to calculate rook f1. Oh. But, I mean, I think this is a really significant error. I mean, black has everything under control, and then he does Maybe that's not so simple, actually. Rook f2. On the rook check, you have another... On the queen check, you have another rook move. Okay, black can play like this, an improved version of this. Way better than what happened in the game. This is important. This king is in a bad position. Black's thinking was like, I'll prevent him from castling. You know? But at the end of the day, this check like allowed him to get his rook into the game. So it might have been a serious mistake. I don't know how serious, though, you know. Bishop takes f5, rook f1, queen g6. So this is clearly allowing rook h6, which was a really powerful blow. Now black could sack his queen, I guess. The best bet would be to sacrifice the queen. You have enough material, technically. Takes. What is this, like a draw? I mean, maybe white ends up winning a pawn here. Rook f7, queen b8 check, king g7, and then snap. So there's a chance for like an outside passer. Not even sure though how easy this is. Not clear to me 100% that white is winning, but white has chances to win. You know, it may still be a draw. But this is a clear blunder. So black just blunders and loses a piece. And now black's just lost. So that was a very sloppy game. You know, a lot of minor mistakes, but I think the like lesson, this is a good move, rook g6 check. The lesson of the game, you know, is really important one. White brushed it. It was probably a fairly fast game. But white didn't have to sacrifice that piece. If we go back, one last thing, the really important moment in the game here, when black plays the insane g5, I don't think we should sacrifice a piece on g5. Funny, it doesn't like my move. It likes bishop e3 better, the computer. It doesn't like bishop h2 for some reason. Okay, I mean, I guess this does have a drawback that it blocks this rook's play along the h file. I mean, I did mention bishop d2, ironically. And I did mention the idea of dropping this bishop back on this diagonal, but I didn't say specifically the best squares. It's not that easy to decide. But I do think this is totally unnecessary. You know, this is a bad move. You're essentially giving the opponent a chance. Without sacrificing a piece here, white is +3. After sacrificing a piece, white is less than 1 pawn advantage. So it's like literally gone from clearly winning to unclear in one move. Very good lesson there. Okay, Mr. Slow is up next with Brinkman. I'll be right back in like 2 minutes, guys. Gonna get a drink and be right back. BRB. All right, welcome back, everybody. So, Mr. Coffee, what do you have to say for yourself? So, thanks for the raid again from Mircea, from Romania, Grandmaster, very strong player, and a friend of the stream here. Check him out, guys. Thanks for the gift sub from Stepfargen to Mircea. And interesting game. I want to just reiterate, like the last game, why it's important. The move G5 by Black in the last game was so bad and so weakening that White like literally has a winning position after that. And I think the problem is that people oftentimes like they don't know. It's like you just don't know how good your position is. I see this with myself and with a lot of other players. You just really don't consciously realize just how good your position really is. You don't have to do anything. Essentially, to win, you just do nothing well, you know, and Black's just lost. It's just a matter of time. Just be patient, you know. Don't have to play forcing moves necessarily. It's not that I'm, like, stingy and materialistic with, like, I don't want to sacrifice, dude, the warrior is just out of control. How would I analyze your game when you didn't send it to me? Please, my game, please. Damn, dude. He's like 3. I feel bad for him. But how would I do your game first when you're like the last one? I'll send it to you in the morning. You wake up tomorrow with a birthday present. You can watch the VOD. Okay, what did I do? I closed my window. I have 2 windows, and I don't know which one it is. Let's see if this is the right one. Kurt Richter versus Brinkman. Yeah. Nope. Yeah. The warrior is pretty strong player for a 6-year-old. Alright. Mr. Slow is in the house. So this is a game he submitted by the German champion Kurt Richter against A. Brinkman. He accused his opponent. You guys know what I'm going to say, right? You know what he did, right, in this game? It's a bad joke. Richter accused his opponent of brinksmanship. Oh my god. Anyway, Mr. Coffee, let's hear your excuse. I want to know, is it like weather related, or you just didn't feel like playing? The Danube was overflowing its banks, so Mr. Coffee couldn't go. He couldn't go to play in the Eastern Open. All right, let's see what kind of brinksmanship Black is capable of here. You don't want to play like a position with lots of tension against Brinkman. You don't want to put him on the brink. Wonder where that saying was invented. All right, anyway. So d5, knight c3. Okay, now this is interesting. Have you seen, in some sources, the Veresov referred to as the Veresov-Richter attack? I now realize I have. Veresov-Richter attack. Knight c3 inherently is an inferior move in that it blocks the c-pawn from attacking the center. If I can get in e4, then I'm fine. But I need to at least attack the center with a pawn. Something, you know. Either e4 or c4, but give me something. When I play knight c3, I'm blocking my c-pawn, so my money is, you know, I'm all in with the e4. If I don't achieve e4, I can't attack his center. That's the problem with the Veresov, aka Veresov-Richter attack. Black foolishly plays the e6 now, I think, foolishly. Transposing to the French defense, it's really a bad move. I mean, the Richter has, or we'll call it the Veresov attack, has the biggest disadvantage of the fact that if I can't achieve e4, I can't even probably claim an equal position. Maybe equal at best after bishop f4, bishop g5. Look at the London system, the Jabava Rapport, whatever. I love how it's called the Rapport Jabava system already. What's the evaluation? Rapport Jabava system is minus 0.2 for white. Great opening. No, it's 0. You let it run. You let it run, it's like around 0. But this is probably white's best move. I think traditionally bishop g5. But honestly, maybe bishop g5 just isn't as good. It's a little bit like a Rue Lopez. I never thought about it this way. When you look at it from the same perspective as the Spanish, bishop g5 is like playing the Rue Lopez versus the Italian game. My computer's fan has been really active since I updated my NVIDIA drivers. So you probably hear like this very strong fan sound. I don't know what to do about that. But anyway, alright, Rue Lopez versus Italian game. Instead, Brinkman plays e6. We transpose to the French. And then black plays the tragic pawn takes pawn. I don't know what Warrior's problem is, Mr. Coffee, but they don't seem to be like communicating properly. e4, d takes e4. Knight takes e4. I don't like the Rubinstein system. Black should play knight f6 or bishop e4. But alright, it's playable. Now knight d7. You warned, Mr. Coffee warned you. Bishop d7, the Fort Knox is worse, I think. And the Rapport. This should be called like the Rapport. Knight f6 is also dubious. Knight d7 is the best move for black. I mean, black's plan is to challenge the knight on e4. But in order to do that, he needs to support the other knight. Now knight f6. And so now white has a problem. You know, his knight is challenged. So do we protect it? Do we avoid exchanges with more space? Or do we trade on f6 with check? So the most common move here is taking on f6, which I always thought was counterintuitive, right? You're trading pieces with more space, but you're gaining time. You didn't, gain an enemy, you lost a friend. I always thought it was like kind of odd. You'd see like Mikhail Tal, for example, I don't know, play knight takes f6 check. Because Tal is such a great attacking player, you'd be surprised to say, oh wow, I wouldn't think Tal would trade pieces, right? But I mean, what are white's choices here? That's the problem. Like, if Tal could not exchange pieces, he probably would. There was a good way to not exchange pieces, he would, but unfortunately these moves like knight g3, knight c3, knight d2, and knight g5 are all considered to be like inferior. I've played this for fun, but unfortunately after h6 the knight has to go back to kind of a bad square on h3. So white doesn't have a choice. He's going to have to allow an exchange of knights. That still doesn't equalize for black though. Now bishop g5 is one of the moves. Black plays this, and now again you cannot avoid at least one exchange of pieces. So the question is like which one. It also reminds me of the Spanish. Reminds me of Spanish Steinitz defense on the other side. So we trade the bishop, we trade the knight. In general, I mean, I don't want to give up bishops for knights without a good reason. However, one has to say in this position, and I've seen, in my experience quite a bit, same thing in the Sicilian with a knight on d4. Bishops are better than knights in general, but this knight on e4 is an extremely well-placed piece. That's like a knight on d4 in the open Sicilian. I mean, this thing is just killing it in terms of controlling the center. So knight f6, bishop e3. Yeah, I've played all of the above, Knight f6 is very common because queen takes is bad. G takes is bad. Black kind of has to take with the knight. And then white just plays either bishop g5, bishop e3, or I don't know, maybe bishop d3. But or c3 is a move as well. I've looked at all of these. And another possibility is bishop d3, which is very similar. Bishop g5, I guess this specific move might transpose to the Byrne variation, but a specific variation of the Byrne variation. So bishop e7, now knight takes, and now pawn takes is bad. It's a question of knight takes or bishop takes. I don't know, how one goes about deciding whether to play knight takes or bishop takes here for black. I mean, exchanging pieces is good when you have less space, but it's black's good bishop for white's so-called bad bishop. And if bishop takes f6, white has h4. It's not clear black will actually be able to exchange bishops, even if he plays bishop takes f6. White isn't obligated to exchange bishops. So bishop takes doesn't necessarily force an exchange of another set of pieces. For example, after bishop takes f6, h4, main line, what's black supposed to do? Like, taking here is bad because of pawn takes, and you're crushed along the h-file. So black probably just leaves the tension or plays h6. And now white doesn't have to exchange. White could also maybe pull the bishop back, avoid exchanges of pieces. So knight takes turns out to be the more common move. No, bishop takes is more common. Okay, and now we have like this classic. God, I don't know, man, Mr. Slow. This is probably not the oldest game. This game was played in 1930 something, but it harkens back to the early 1900s, late 1800s. So Pillsbury loved to play this type of position where we would trade the bishops on g5. I imagine if Pillsbury was playing white, he would play either, well, any of the above, queen d2, bishop f6, or h4. They're all good. Pillsbury wouldn't go out of his way to avoid exchanging that bishop. Let's say players as much as 35 years before this game was played knew how to play this position, is what I'm saying. Queen d2. Now we're going to take with the knight. I like h4, but queen d2 promotes development, so it's definitely a good move. And now black plays b6, which is typical for the Byrne variation. Since this bishop has no other way out, and if you look, you see, hey, two grandmasters have played this position for black. The real irony is that Packer and Silviano, they both played this position with black in the last 10 years. That's really whacked. This is kind of crazy, isn't it? I mean, you got a game. This was played in 1930, 35, 31, whatever. And There's like literally no games in the database until after 2000, and then these games just suddenly show up. Maybe there's more games in the database than there used to be, but here's an interesting move. So this is repeated by Mackenzie Molnar against Enrico. I mean, you know, you're expecting white to castle queenside here, right? Then black has bishop b7 threatening bishop takes f3. It's not a big deal. But does this freeze black in the center? You know, I'm threatening 95, no? And if that's strong, then black's in trouble. So the takeaway would be that you can't play b6 in this position. George Meyer doesn't play b6 here. I know you German guys know who I'm talking about. Barayev has a game with Karpov from 91. There you go, George Meyer, 2014. Drawing with Ponomarev. The Pucker game is in there. There's a Robert Hubner game, 2003. But, you know, what happens on h6, by the way? How bad is that? I know Zoli has a recent game. What did he do? He just brought the bishop back. Zoli's a good attacking player. This is a controversial move, but very interesting. You know, I am not surprised by bishop e3. I also think that white can take, though. You know, for God's sake, even bishop f4 is probably a decent move for white here. But all right, b6 is definitely a mistake. So instead of that, black has to find a viable. It looks like everyone takes on g5. Karpov, Barayev, and George Meyer. You know, so this is in the George Meyer database. Now, trading queens is ridiculous. You know, there's under no circumstances should you take with the queen. So knight takes g5, and now, you know, we'll check. Lenderman played it and lost, but I mean, dude, you have to be a specialist to play this with black. George Meyer's analysis goes like 30 moves deep in every variation where it's like a forced draw or something. I don't think that Lenderman knows it that well. So you can't just play the Rubinstein variation of the French, not knowing it very deeply. You know, ultimately I think like h4 is probably a stronger move. Knight takes, bishop takes, h4. It's more stable. You might also develop the queen to d3. Possibly, you know, I mean, that's a typical idea in this variation, by the way. But possibly, you know, e2 or d3 as alternatives to queen d2. Okay, it's an old game. Queen d2, b6, blunder, and then bishop e5. Now black's in trouble. Takes, knight takes. I may have mentioned, Richter has a book on tactics that I have. So I don't know if he was very renowned for his tactical prowess. I'm going to assume that I'm not worried about this pawn on g2. And, you know, I know self-respecting attacking player is going to, like, hesitate and play something like f3. You know, ironically, you could play f4. Not only defending the knight, but defending the g-pawn laterally. That's probably not a terrible move. f3, for example, isn't very constructive. But he just castles, so offering this pawn, which is like suicidal for black to take that. I mean, the problem with the Rubinstein variation, this whole line, is like, how can black equalize? Black's king is in the center of the board, and white has a monstrous, powerful central pawn on d4, just totally dominating the board. How the heck can black possibly be okay here? What does black have to do to be okay? Get your king the hell out of the board and make that d-pawn disappear. That's a tall order. You know, like, how are you going to, like, just get in c5 and just magically castle and everything's okay? If I were black here, I mean, to be honest, like, is there some reason not to castle? Am I missing something? I mean, I know that we won't be that safe, but man, I think castling deserves consideration, dude. Under the circumstances, what's the big deal? Opening it up with d5, some sort of queen d3, bishop d3. I mean, there's a lot of... I think that black needs to castle here, no? I mean, is there any... There's no, like, clear crushing move, is there? This actually doesn't look that bad. Damn. It's zeros. Well, I'm surprised the position is equal according to the engine after castles. We solved the problem of the king being in the center, but you still haven't equalized against the central pawn. So I would think that white was still better here. I would have thought that white is still better here. The computer says that it's equal. Computer's point is that we're going to do the Kosich and get this in, the George Meyer Kosich, and eventually we achieve c5. Black does equalize, apparently. Wow. So Brinkman, on the brink, you know, he doesn't castle. It's just like, had to castle. Well, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it was kind of a no-brainer. You got to ask yourself, like, is that candy poisoned? Why would a strong player, you know, allow you to, like, make, you know, put the knight on h3 or go here and let black maybe smash the structure and survive? I don't know. Did he expect this? What did Brinkman think was going to happen? Did he expect knight f3 maybe? Probably. Safe assumption, right? I think he expected knight f3, and he expected that Richter would judge that, you know, his bishop's really strong here, and the double pawns aren't so bad. And if he castles, like, the g file gives white some threats or something. This must have been black's thinking, you know. White will play knight f3 after h6. I'll be alright. But he missed the shot. d5. Which I probably would have missed as well, to be honest. This is a really amazing move. Because black is threatening the knight. Two different ways, sacrificing knight on g5 to both the queen and the pawn on h6. Yeah. I mean, you know, you're probably looking at knight takes e6. You're looking at knight takes f7. And then you're just like, well, yeah. This move didn't crush your mind. Well, there are like 4 potential variations. Bishop d5, pawn d5, pawn g5, and queen g5. So that makes it kind of complicated. 4 different ways this position could go. I mean, I guess it's pretty safe to assume this looks really, really dangerous. Like h takes, pawn takes. That's not really a variation. I think that black's just busto immediately. Because, I mean, we're losing d7 with check. This is really bad. Queen takes g5 is a little different because the queens are in trade. So then, you know, we need some calculation here. Are we doing bishop takes d7 check? Pawn takes pawn. You could even do pawn takes pawn, right? Allow a trade of queens. No, there's this. This is actually made... No. It's actually kind of complicated. So we can do this. This. Safe to assume, I think that king is not safe. You know, king takes e6, rook e1 check, and, well, I mean, you know, I don't think that black is in a safe place here. But you have to verify with calculation. So that leaves us with, I can't take the knight. So I should take on d5. If bishop takes d5, bishop takes d5, that's the safest move for black. I'm looking at crazy stuff now. Alright. But I mean, still our knight is hanging. You don't tell me we got some queen sacrifice. I don't think there's any queen sacrifice here. So I'm not really sure how this works. But now my knight is under attack. Bishop d5, c4. Queen takes g5. What is going on here? This is okay for black. Wow. So it turns out the bishop takes d5 is actually okay. Well, I mean, I think that's apparently the safest move. You know, you don't move any pawns. You don't do anything crazy. That would be the default move for me anyway. This looks insanely dangerous, obviously. You know, I mean, opening the e-file, anybody could figure that out. Like, okay, this looks dangerous. But he does a surprising move now. He plays this. Too much respect. Gave white a winning attack. Black could have been okay after bishop takes d5. He had too much respect for the attack. He plays e5. And now, boom. So that's a cute move. Hitting the queen, hitting the pawn, and hitting g7. And black has problems now. He has to take. So e5 ultimately didn't make black safer. It only made it worse. Take. And now he should have castled before. And then Richter just takes with the queen. Everything's good here, I would imagine. All of the above. But probably this is a little tricky because this pawn is so well blockaded that it's hard to see how we're going to advance. I don't think that Richter necessarily wants the pawn on d7. He just grabs another pawn. It's two pawns. And now this is a threat. So he couldn't take. Well, he's hanging a bishop anyway. It's just crushing. So we only got one pawn up. But now we're crushing the 7th rank. And then he tries this desperado check. And resigns. Because what happens if you move your king? we're taking the rook. Yeah. So we win a piece. What about rook takes rook, queen takes rook, queen f8? Rook takes, queen takes check, queen f8, illegal move. My queen is there. Okay. No, this is nothing. But okay, it was. He scammed him a little bit, but Brinkman wasn't on his level. Brinkman couldn't handle it when he got on the brink. I mean, I still think, like, if you think about the position logically, it's hard to believe that black didn't castle here. Castles was difficult to see how white, has an attack necessarily. I think that white looks better, but really should have castled. Sung Prism with the late submission to the stream. Thank you. All right. Let's see what we got. Dudes, I am very sleepy tonight. I don't know what's up with me. All right, is Nefedov in the house? Thank you, Mr. Slow, for the game submission. Do we have Nefedov? Julie, are you here? Julie, are you here, Julie? I can do Morales first. Morales was here. This is a game he submitted. It's a very fast game. 2+1 bullet. Serious time control. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5. Imagine those players played for the German Championship. The level has risen a bit since then. Well, I mean, the level, yeah. But, I mean, if you go back, the level in Germany, I mean, okay, you had some good players in Germany. But I think the level overall, it's not just, German Championship, but all of Europe really throughout the world has increased exponentially. Although I think now we reached the point where ratings are like super inflated. I was looking yesterday at like Yasser Seirawan. Someone asked me, like, didn't Yasser like reach 2,700? I was like, I don't think so. Do you know? I mean, it wasn't normal for people back in the 80s to be like 2,700. Like only like Karpov and Kasparov and like one or two other players. Tal was like 2,705. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't usual for anyone to be over 2,700. Now it's like, okay, has the level really gone up, or just the rating system is more out of whack? But in general, level has risen. Yes. All right, bishop c4, bishop c5, c3, knight f6, and now we're not going to call this the Italian game, are we? Morales is playing the Dubov attack. Wait, that's not it. No, that's different. No, this is different. The Dubov thing was d4, then b4. Okay. So I don't know this. I just hate b4 on principle. You know that's a slimy, cheesy move. Good for 2+1 especially. It's the ideal move for 2+1 time control. Yeah, today 2785 would be like an IM. No, Morales with b4. Look at b4 though. The trappiest move I can play here. It has the highest decisive results of any move. 32% wins for white, 32% wins for black, based on 358 games. the wing gambit. So it's unbelievable that some people actually play bishop e7 here. Why not bishop f8? All those people who played bishop e7, I mean, I'm just kidding, but cowards. Bishop e7 is playable, but why? You know, like your bishop's going to get trapped or something. So now we expect white to play a4, but apparently that's unsound. If a4, knight takes e4. Well, there's no way to know until we check it, right? It was played once by what looks like was possibly a correspondence player. I mean, having said A, like, why don't we say B? If b4, bishop b6, a4, knight takes e4, threatening f2, and threatening d5, sort of. Anyway, it's just something worth considering. So this is apparently like, well, I would think it would transpose then after d3. This could just be like d3, d6, b4. You're just you're transposing now to some kind of b4 line. I never liked this for white. I don't understand necessarily like why you want to like grab space with these pawns necessarily. I think it's a risky strategy by white. You can overextend your queen side. d6, a4. I always recommended people not to play like this. Asterbait used to play like this. So black has a5 or a6. Both are playable. I don't know. a5 is less passive for black here. You have to play b5, and then knight a7. Anyone? With the idea of knight c8? Just kidding. Knight b8, knight d7, or knight e7. Knight e7 is good. It doesn't get in the way of anything other than the queen. And white's played the quiet d3, so I just don't feel inspired by white's position. And now, you know, even less so by the following move. Now, I was just talking about this with Yabatis in a lesson where we were looking at a whale. Like, you know what the whale is? Speaking of the Kraken, the whale. The whale is where you play like c4, d3, e4, or e4, c4, I guess. I guess it's like e4, c4. So e4, e5, c4, essentially. So I was just going over something with Yabatis. It was like this, you know, something simple like this. And on bishop c5, he was like, well, we can play bishop e3. And I was saying, you know, okay, it's like an Italian game type situation, but the thing about this is like you've got all of your pawns on white squares, and you're essentially trading like your good bishop for the opponent's bad bishop on e6 or e3. And so a lot of times, obviously, the same thing happens. The same thing happens so often, right, with black. The question is, like, when should black do this with bishop e6? I think that's one of the most tricky things, you know, to decide on. When is it appropriate to play, like, bishop e6 for black in the gioco piano? Or gioco pianissimo? Because ultimately, it's your good bishop for the opponent's bad bishop. So like in a vacuum, you don't really want to do it. But this is strong. So yeah, I don't like bishop e3. But black on his side, this is a good exchange for him in general, for black. But on the other hand, like, he also doesn't have to exchange on white's terms. If I take on e3, I'm giving you the surrogate pawn on e3 that controls key dark squares, gives you some better dark square control. I also open up the f-file for white to attack on the king side, which can be beneficial. And I do recommend studying 500 Master Games of Chess. And these old games where Schlechter and, I don't know, Charasek played white in these types of positions, the turn of the century or whatever. But, you know, ultimately, not sure. Is bishop e3 really the best move, you know? So black doesn't have to take either. He can allow white to take on b6. Because if you think about it, let's say black castles. I play bishop takes b6. Like, oh, okay, well, how do you attack that pawn at b6 exactly? You know? Is it a simple thing? Because I'm not really thinking it's very easy for white to go about attacking those doubled pawns. You know, I mean, it's not like a simple matter. Like, I'll just attack his b6 pawn. I mean, I'll put my queen on e3 and my knight on c4, and then I'll take his pawn on, you know. So it's not so easy. I mean, maybe black should hold tight here. All right. So bishop takes, f takes, castles, castles. Norman Rogers versus Rio. I lost to this guy in that tournament in 1992. Very painful game. Alejandro Rios. I always thought it was 91. You literally thought, well, yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, like, when a black could literally put his queen on c7 and his knight on d7. I mean, you know, he can defend it, even if you could station your pieces on the perfect squares to attack his. You know, that's just dismissing any possibility of black, like attacking your queen on e3. It's a complicated thing, but you get my point. I literally lost to this guy, Alejandro Rios, in that same tournament where that was played in 1992. I had a really good position. That was a painful game, very long. The worst of the games that you're winning and they're very long and you lose. I like losing quickly, you know, quick and painless. Losing long games where you were winning most of the game, that's the worst. Knight g6, queen e1. Now, here's the problem with the queen side. With that balloon that you've got bloating on the queen side. And in order for these pawns to be proven overextended, the position has to open up, which means that black has to play d5. But I feel like that's very fundamental, Morales. This is what I'm looking to do when I'm black. Whenever white plays this type of thing with like the overextended queen side, because now you got like the shelf going on here. The elf on a shelf. That's a lot of pawn moves. It looks like it's okay, you know, you can keep it protected, but it's kind of an annoying liability. For now, you're okay. You know, so long as it's not easy for black to sort of, let's say, frontally attack. Queen d6, queen here. Could frontally attack this and this. But again, you know, like what I was saying, I mean, if the pawns can't be attacked, they're not really weaknesses. Now white makes, I would say, a curious move. White to play in this position. Black just opened the center. And his move is, well, I want to develop my pieces because your queen side is undeveloped. Korchnoi style rook lift, better in a closed position. But you played bishop b3. And the thing about this move is, like, well, what's the plan? I mean, are you going to do this? Is that a tricky way to play knight e3, knight c4? Because anytime you play knight d2, you're dropping the c3 pawn, which is not good. But what's the point of bishop b3? Like, you could just play knight a3. It's not a great square, but at least can go to c2. This obviously drops the pawn on c3, but I wonder... The knight is kind of awkward. Not sure what you can do about it, though. Nothing, it looks like. Well, I don't defend white's position. I don't like this type of opening. So you play bishop e3, though. I don't really get it. You know, like, what does that do? We'll see. I mean, c4 maybe, but that has other problems. You know, and this is the other problem. Ultimately, Morales, what can you do when you're playing 2-minute chess or 1-minute chess? Are you going to play very deep, strategic type of chess? No. So, black plays rook e8. Don't know about that. I mean, to me, like, this looks kind of sensitive. I don't think, like, rook e8 would necessarily be my first choice. Perhaps I would consider king h8 for black here. Getting off the diagonal seems like a good idea. Another move that looks logical is bishop e6. Guarding my knight and developing a piece. This is not a threat. So I think I like bishop e6 or king h8. But instead he plays rook e8, which leaves f7 like really little bit, you know, this is a 4. It's a nice 4 you've got there. Well, nothing concrete, but I just would be nervous about f7 if I were black. It's like, is rook e8 really necessary? I think the other moves are better. But alright, rook e8, and then this. And this is a catastrophe from, you know, from a sort of strategic standpoint. First of all, like, you're blocking your bishop, right? Secondly, you're weakening the dark squares, and there's total capitulation here. The shelf is falling. Yeah, so you're just like, come on in and like destroy me. I'm ready to die now. But maybe you thought you had some d4. So this is what happens. Morales saw it, but he thought it doesn't matter because he can play just push. You know, still these pawns are pretty strong, but there's a hole here. Oh, and then the file. So that's a curious situation. Why didn't black just take in this position? I mean, black clearly has a good game here. You have to play knight takes d4. And now it's like very ugly position for white. I still don't like the rook e8 though, because the f7 ultimately. But he plays instead like bishop g4. I guess this is a good move too. Ultimately, bishop g4 undermines the d4. So I thought you would play knight d2 now. You should play knight d2 now. And it doesn't look that bad, actually. You're still going to have to do this. But it really doesn't matter, because you would have had to do it anyway last move. So instead you play queen g3, and it looks like d4 is falling. So bishop f3, queen f3, uh-oh. That's one of the reasons why I didn't like rook e8. Now he takes, allowing queen f7 check, but it turns out that it's like hollow. Just a pawn, man. White won a pawn and black won like total domination of the board. Yeah, I mean, I don't like this line, you know, for white. To be honest, I never did. And now it makes a nice queen sack. Well, it's not a queen sack. I mean, it's like just crushing. Yeah. Ugly, dude. Yeah, Morales, I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, I think if you play that type of b4 thing, you really got to know it. Maybe you want to try the Dubov next time. Play the trappy, you know, d4 pawn takes pawn b4 thing. This would probably, it's been what, 3 years since he played that. You know, there's probably been other games I'm not familiar with, but that's more tactical. What can I do with the Italian? Not play b4. The Italian is meant to be like a boring game, or you can play the other variation, you know, the c3, knight f6. Why don't you play the main line, like d4 takes e5? I mean, this variation is... Anyway, you love control of the e5 square. I mean, this would totally... No, not the Evans Gambit. Evans Gambit isn't great. I think, like, this is good. This is solid. You don't play this? If you have to play the Italian game, this line is the most annoying for black. The old, you know, Molar attack doesn't really work, so this is sort of the only way to play. Or you just play a quiet, but if you play the quiet line, then you have to just play like uber boring for white, which doesn't really suit your style. So that's your choices, basically. You have choices. This line is fine, though. I mean, the e5 is fine. And there's several different ways to play it. Now, I don't think it's that easy for black, and you get like your kind of patent space advantage with e5. Alright, so we're on to Julie. We're on to you, Julie. What about Schumacher? Nefedov's not here yet, right? Maybe Pavel's not showing up tonight. We can skip his game. Guys, Stapvargan, when did you donate those 76? That was the other day. I forgot to panhandle today. Guys, donate. Start a hype train. I lack energy, and I forgot to beg for money today. The Jababa blah. Play the Jababa blah. Oh, Jababa plays that one line. Yeah, but that's one of the soundest things he plays, actually. It's kind of uncharacteristic. He plays the Caro Can. Why would Jababa play the Caro Can? You know, that's so weird. But I mean, the guy knows how to play normal chess. He just chooses not to, I guess. All right. So here's Nefedov. Nefedov playing against Julie. Like, we showed the wrong game last time. I don't even know that Nefedov was going to be here, but he had submitted the wrong game last time, and we showed a game where he lost to Julie. And so now I want to correct that and show the game he meant to show. Julie's white, Nefedov's black. This was played in the, you know, in Stafford versus Stourbridge. It's like a British chess league or whatever. I don't know what they call it. It's not the 4NCL. It's something like lower. Oh, there you're not here. What do you call the league that you play in? It's not 4NCL, right? This is some kind of local league. British league. Not here today. Nephew league. The nephew league. Not here today. Well, I was trying to like lure you out with that trick, you know, by the way. I'm smarter than you think. I knew he wouldn't speak up unless I tricked him to like showing himself. Reverse psychology. You were quietly hiding there, and I thought I could suck you out. Wolverhampton. I think of wolves. Alright, d4, d5, c4, c6, knight f3, knight f6, boom, boom. Same as your other game, you play with the same player. Are you serious? Like, this chick played a4 last time. She beat you, and then she switched to e3? Is Julie like 6 years old? This is dangerous, man. She's playing the old school variation, dude, with e3. Nobody plays that. Even I don't play that. The last person I saw play this was like Portish in 2010. I couldn't believe someone else played it. Portish played it and drew against a weaker GM. Or actually, he was probably the same, but... Aliakim played it. And I've tried to play it against you, but I know that it's nothing for white. I never got anything with this move. For a reason, it's just not good enough for white. But what are you doing here? You're seriously trying to trick her into transposing? And you don't play... Like, didn't you play this against me? B5 is black's best move, and you know it's the best move, and you still didn't play it. Oh, no. So you knew it was a move, you played it against me, but you didn't want to play against Zone Prep. But there's, like, nothing for white in this line. It's like a dead variation. It hasn't been successful for white since 1956 or something. I tried to play it. It's hopeless. I remember I played it against some Russian grandmaster on this site. I don't remember his name. It was like my Russian professor. Some weird Belorusov or Bello something. He's some GM that plays on the site. I groveled for a draw with white. You know, like I just played the best I could, like I was playing a computer. All I could do was like barely hang on for a draw with white. That's how bad this line is. Like you just feel like you're suffering. But alright. The problem is, like, you know, technically, like, this is inaccurate. He, she, they. Their pronouns are he, she, they. She doesn't have to play a4, man. You understand how significant that is. If white doesn't have to play a4, they don't have to compromise their queenside, and the b4's not weak. So you've got a way worse kind of Slav, essentially. I mean, you're avoiding her home prep, but at a very serious price here. You're giving white the mainline Slav without the weak b4 square. Now e6, castles, and so, okay, obviously like bishop b4 doesn't pin anything. So that move is out the window. Now, theoretically, this is very good for white. There's interesting. Look at the top two games where this was played. Caruana Dubov from 2022, and then the second game of the list is Timan Lebojevic from 1987. That's really weird, right? If the second top game for this variation is Timan Lebojevic, 1987, the first game is like basically it's a red herring, you know. It's just Dubov being weird, basically being himself and going too far, playing something like too experimental, and getting crushed by Caruana. Yeah. You just can't really play this line. All right. So Nefedov playing a line that's considered to be highly questionable. I mean, you'd really prefer to put your bishop on d6. It's more active here. But ultimately, white, it's going to be hard to stop white from playing e4. Or maybe impossible, ultimately. You don't have bishop e4. I mean, one of the most important things about the Slav, right, is that bishop on b4, by hitting the knight at c3, you maintain control over the e4 square, in a hyper-modern way, right? If we don't have bishop e4, then we have less control of e4, so it's easier for white to use his or her, you know, central majority. you've got to know that white will play e4 at some point. So there's no sense in like concretely trying to prevent it if you can't stop it anyway. So we'll play in a hypermodern manner. So I guess either bishop e7 or knight on bd7. We don't play bishop d6. A, white can stick a knight on e5. B, if we play bishop d6, it can get forked by e4, e5 later. So I agree with bishop e7 or knight on bd7. You played this. And, you know, the company... I don't understand. Okay, Postny Yakov Attila. Just offhand question. Castles, okay. I wonder if knight h4 is possible. Just saying. Alright. So castles, bishop e7. You know, you always have to keep knight h4 in mind. Probably not as good when white castled. Bishop d2. Here she goes again. This is home preparation. You're serious. Nefedov's opponent, Julie Wilson, is like the bishop d2. The world-leading expert on bishop d2. She should just do what I did against Just Explained and just play like d3, bishop d2 on the first two moves. This is totally like insane. I mean, at least in the other game, she played bishop d2 when your bishop was on b4. Ended up being like kind of pointed. You know, she's trading the dark square bishop off. This is so weird. Naturally, no one else played bishop d2. Rook e1 is almost as bad. So you can see like all the good players played queen e2 here. h3 is also yeah, h3 is lame and inflexible. You know, if you play h3, then later f3 will be weaker. No question that queen e2 is the best move. Rook e1 is lame, bishop d2 is lame, h3 is lame. Therefore, by default, the only good move is queen e2. Alright. Lame. Lame. I can't believe you lost to this player. It's a robot. They're a robot. They're not even human. The other thing I can't believe you're doing is you're playing c5. Does it me, or does it seem weird to play c5 now? I get it that you can play c5. But after this move rook c1, it almost seems kind of ironic to play c5. Though I don't know what to suggest. I mean, you played a lame opening, and white has a better center. But then she's playing these like lame moves like bishop d2, rook c1. So it's like neither side wants to win here, clearly. What would Frank Marshall do, Uber driver? I think that h6, if we're going to play the London system or whatever, h6 deserves consideration. Developing deserves consideration. Frank deserves, yeah. See, Uber driver knows what I'm talking about. Frank would play knight e4. Exactly. Frank likes knight e4. Especially with the bishop on d2. But still, white is slightly better. Yeah, but this is fine. Okay, you equalized. Congratulations. But now if white takes on c5, it's a horribly, you know, symmetrical type position. So she plays, oh goodness. Clearly, you know, Nefedov's opponent must be like a 9-year-old girl or something. I mean, she doesn't create any weaknesses, but has a sort of robotic style. I can't believe he was worried about home preparation. That's the last thing you should be worried about here. Perfect technique in an equal position is more like it. What I would be worried about. Knight e2. What a safe move. So, I mean, obviously knight c6 is fine. Do you have a problem here? Take, take, take. Or not fine? a2's hanging. So you wanted to play c5. It's very interesting. You got in c5. She plays knight e2. And now she's actually threatening to take on c5 because she's opened this up. And she's pretty good tactically too. When she's not creating no weaknesses, she actually sees like 1 and 2 of tactics almost like perfectly. Another reason why I thought it's like a 9-year-old who's done like thousands of puzzles or something. They play like a Nokia phone again. 1, 2 of tactics, no weaknesses, very robotic style. I think you should create imbalance against a player like that. Chaos, even. Positional imbalance is probably what you need to try to create against a player like this. So bishop g4, a good try. I agree. However, it may lose a pawn. Could the Nokia 900 be materialistic? Yes, there's a strong chance of that. The other way you could trick her is maybe by cashing in on some sort of materialistic tendency. She grabs the pawn on c5. Well, if you take on c5, she takes on e6. Now we've wasted a tempo. But we could just play it as straight up pawn sack, like bishop back to d6. I want to see this. Now, this is a tempo loss, like takes, and bishop takes a2. I mean, that's lame. Best case scenario, like we don't lose our bishop on a2 or something. You know, this is not what I want to do. But what you could get is maybe something against her king side. I was thinking play for just active pieces. This looks kind of scary for white, to be honest. Oh no, your bishop's hanging. Wow. I'm losing my mind. Alright, first we'd have to do bishop takes f3. Yeah, it's not clear, is it? It's not really clear. This isn't convincing. Even here. Doesn't look like we got anything. The bishop will come back to g2 and like protect her king side. So Nefedov basically unwittingly sacrificed a pawn. Now he goes here. Frank Marshall style. Maybe he didn't sacrifice a pawn. Uh-oh. I'm not happy about trading queens, but I'm happy to get my pawn back. Do you have bishop f3 and knight d2? Oh my gosh. And she could have traded queens. Maybe she was overconfident after like beating you the first time or something. She thought Nefedov was really, really weak. I would be getting the queens off the board ASAP here. I mean, it's not nice to give up the open file, though. Yeah, I guess. It's not so easy. But, I mean, with her king side compromised, I think that I would want to be on the safe side if I were white and not necessarily leave the queens on the board. I don't like that structure with the queens on the board. So she takes, and then Nefedov plays on d2. Like, for example, I wouldn't mind sacrificing an exchange. But I'd rather the queens were traded if I was going to do that. I thought maybe she could sack the exchange here. I don't mind giving up the rook on f1 if I've got a pawn or two for the exchange. You know, like I can play bishop b3. For example, let's do bishop b3. What did she do? Bishop b3, knight f1, queen f1. Or you could actually, well, you could actually trade queens, but let's say this. You know, let's see. Wow, Nefedov's totally winning. Not enough. Yeah, 92 is too strong. So what do you guys think? Like, you think she just, like, missed 92 and she thought that Neffy was going to snap his pawn back on g5, on c5 to restore material equality? Try to play for a draw? So if I'm her, I would... You know, she's got to consider her options, but she has to sack the exchange. I just realized. I didn't realize she has to sack the exchange. She just missed 92. So it's not a question. Like, it's just a question of the best way to sack the exchange here. So f4 was best according to the engine. Okay. And now you pick up the d4 pawn. And it's over. Or do you? Oh my god. What? You have this move? Can't believe you have this move. Wow, knight d4. You have queen takes d4? Seriously? Wow. I can't believe she didn't play rook e1 now. White has a chance to not lose the exchange, and they didn't take it here. I mean, obviously Nefedov has a lot of play. Bishop g5, bishop h4, rook d8. But, man, I thought you were going to cash in for your exchange. You should be able to win, just technically. The White's queenside majority is somewhat threatening. I feel like Black is winning by virtue of material. I'm actually a little bit surprised to see Nefedov go with the riskier acrobatic style queen takes d4 here. At this point, we're not getting the exchange. White can play like rook e1, bishop h4, queen e2 or something. There's no guarantee we have an attack, and White still has two bishops and equal pawns. I mean, maybe I'm missing something here, you know. But I feel like I would have cashed in on that rook, and he goes with the queen takes d4. She has bishop there. That's a neat move. Wow. Well, for example, this is a problem. Damn. But I mean, to be fair, like, I don't think you're at any risk of losing here. I think the real risk is that she draws somehow. Black's not in danger of losing. You're not down any material. You have a better structure, and the only risk you're running is the queenside majority of 3-on-2. If somehow she just like advances her queenside, she's gonna win on the queenside. This is a natural looking move. Bishop g5 is also possible. And the other rook is possible. Obviously, there's this diagonal. So you could do f rook. Keep the other rook on the queen side. I think that's more natural, actually. What's the rook doing on f8? Nothing. And in fact, your king might want to like go approach the center. So this is a more natural rook move, to be honest. Fd8. Oh my god, no way. That's... See, we don't want to trade queens here, Nefedov. So that's the virtue of bishop g5, but I don't know if it matters, because after this, you're gonna be forced to trade queens anyway. Maybe not, though. Then you can do rook d8. Did you offer a draw at any point in this game? Oh, no. She offered a draw. I saw a draw offer. She offered a draw. He loves to offer draws. But, you know, with the busted king side, that's why I'm saying, with the busted king side, that's why I didn't want white. I wanted white to trade queens. Your king is completely safe. The golden rule with queen exchanges is like the side of the safer king should keep the queens on the board. You have the safer king. There's no question about that. You definitely don't want her to trade queens. So that's why this move is a mistake, basically. Not something tactical. Nefedev's not in any danger, but his winning chances just like kind of went out the window after rook d8. You really, really need to keep the queens on. So here. And if here, you have here. And hopefully you can avoid an exchange of queens somehow. Alright, so there, she's like changing queens. Okay, she's a little worse, right? But if it's like a young player, opposite color bishops and rooks is a really... Alex Scherzer used to say, like, the last round is a fertile place to pick up points, right? Well, opposite color bishops and rook positions are a good place to pick up points. You know, people just assume these type of endgames are draws, and it's a big mistake. Now, queenside majority isn't that scary. I mean, you blockade the dark squares, you blockade the dark squares. She's not going to get the queenside majority through, but this damage is done over here. So Nefedov can put pressure on f2, double down. White should try to trade pieces as quickly as possible now. Bishop b3, and then bishop h4. I don't care if I lose a pawn with white if I can swap pieces. Wow. So she just like lunged forward with her pawn. And I think like a trade of rooks would allow what? Like this, which is BFD. Maybe not BFD though. It's a rook ending. If we start talking about rook endings where Nefedov has 4-on-2 on the king side, he might be winning. It's not so simple. I'm not sure that she can sack a pawn here. So she plays b5, offers a draw, which is reasonable, I guess, depending on the rating of the opponent. A little surprised Nefedov didn't take it. He loves draws. The other problem for you here is that, like, well, I talked about blockading on the dark squares, but you really need, like, your bishop on f4. You better get it there fast, like yesterday. Maybe bishop h4 almost was like a mistake, effectively. Nephew draw. Uh-oh. It does like Drawco. When Leiko was in his draw prime, I made up Drawco. No, we can get there just in time. Like c6 takes bishop f4, c7, and rook c8, right? Just in the nick of time, we're able to blockade and avert back rank disaster. If we don't have that blockade, you know, her pawn is kind of scary. So Nefedov has another plan. He plays king f8. Okay, this is interesting. Maybe the king can play a decisive role in stopping that pawn. That's cool. King f8. Now, maybe she's a little aggressive here. g5, not a good move. Bishop g5, not a good move. So this is an unpleasant move for black to deal with. Rook d4. And you've got this idea now. A new way of approaching the c7 square. She trades. And then plays rook d1. Oh my god. Oh my god. And now, effectively, like, you can trade rooks and win, but you can't not trade rooks. I mean, her penetration here to the 7th is pretty invasive. I can't believe you won this. I mean, I can believe it, but it's still... This, like, literally has to be a draw. Takes, king e7. It's like you have to try to lose this position with white really, really hard. She has to lose, I don't know how many pawns, you know, effectively. She's going to have to lose like 3 pawns to lose this position. I mean, she really is going to have to lose at least 2 or 3. I don't know about f4. You know, in spirit, it's not a bad idea. Like, you put your pawns on opposite color of your bishop, you bring your king up to, like, f3. But at the same time, in this particular, you know, and also it prevents Semphdov from playing, like, bishop g5, bishop f4. I don't think it's, like, the priority here. You know, maybe it's better off, we're better off just forgetting about that, you know, and just putting our pawns on, like, white squares. Then again, like, one of them's going to be stuck on a dark square no matter what, you know. But I think you might be just like better off just bringing your king to the center. So f4, okay. And you actually should consider f5 at some point. Right here. Oh, yeah, that was her plan. So basically, like, bishop takes b7. And, you know, this is definitely a draw. Though black might be a tiny bit better, it's not enough to really make progress. You can try. She's like trying to play for a win or something with c6. There's no real winning chances, only losing chances. Holy shit. So here, this is unbelievable. White played king f1 in this position. After all that, after beating you once and reaching a drawn opposite color bishop position, White now plays king f1. Damn. And this is like an extra bad move. It's like super bad because not only do you like not do anything about the f4 pawn, but you leave the other pawn on h2. Which is going to be in the line of fire from this pawn. So, I mean, literally, f5 is a better move. Like, I seriously would wager that white probably won't lose after f5. Just literally losing a pawn. But this move, leaving both pawns in the diagonal of death. The point is, like, then bishop c7, f5, bishop takes h2. The key is that you can get, you know, you can get 2 connected passed pawns. So eventually you take here with the king, and you move the 3 up. You'll be able to at least try to win. I don't know if this is a win or not. I have no idea. It's very complicated. Extremely complicated. You know, like, because white can sacrifice maybe their bishop for the last 2 pawns. Totally depends on details of the position. King f1 is crazy. Okay, here. And now the computer says that h4 was best. Well, I mean, to be honest, like, I'm not sure that h4 matters. What, really? h4? Well, as I said, like, I think f5, bishop takes h2. This is very, very strongly possible that black is winning. But, you know, I would play h3 or king g2 if I were white here. I wouldn't necessarily think to play h4. There may be some configuration, though, that she can reach. Bishop takes, king g2. I would assume you would fix her pawn on a dark square, you know, at some point. So what is the point here? Maybe you can't make progress? You have the 4 pawns against 2, and there are chances, but I'm not sure you can actually physically force bishop and, you know, 2 connected past pawns, essentially. That's what you really need. Either 2 spread apart pawns or 2 connected pawns. So you either want to get like this is passed and this is passed, or the 2 connectors. It's possible it's a draw. You know, maybe white you know, gives away their pawn on the queen side, let's say, to trade off. Say she like loses the 2 for 1 on the queen side. It comes down to just 4 on the same side, and now she can sack her bishop for the last 2. I mean, it's a very complicated position. But I mean, this king f1 is like ridiculous. She plays that solid, and then just like, people are amazing, you know. There's certain players who are really bad in simplified positions. I don't quite understand it. How can you play worse in simplified positions than in complicated positions? Like my teammate Proak Martin, he's very good in tactics and complex positions, but in simple endgames he's like horrible. I don't understand that. Maybe they get bored, or I really don't quite understand, you know, why playing like simpler positions is harder than playing more complicated positions. So f6, king c3. Alright, so Nefertov blockades the queen side. It's hard to believe that bishop a5 check is a mistake. But you have to make progress on the king side, so essentially you're going to have to go over there. Maybe bishop b6 or something. It could be that bishop b6 is somehow better than bishop a5. Okay, this is very technical, but he goes to the queen side. Oh no. Oh no. So he checks her, and she doesn't want to go to b3. She goes here, and now he can penetrate. But is that even the right idea? You're not threatening this yet. You need to play bishop b6 in order to even be threatening that. Uh-oh. Damn, so she loses a pawn. How can you like keep at least one pawn on the board in this position? f5 check. Looks like they're all going to go. I mean, I don't understand. So g5? I realized it was a blunder even before I pressed the clock. Well, I mean, even so, like, what's the best move here? h6? Looks like your white squares are weak. Is this really enough? h6, bishop f7, g5, king f5, bishop d4. Wow. Let's say king g4. I just figure a5, h4. takes. Here. Bishop takes f4 is winning. Here. A4. I guess this is a win. The table base isn't showing up. Very narrow path here. But H5 is an obvious mistake. I thought about F5, but still your pawns are all going to go. So it's kind of like process elimination. The only chance is H6. It doesn't look great though. I mean, I don't blame you for not playing H6 because it looks like your white squares are weak. You're really lucky if you won this game after H5. Holy crap. Wow. And she doesn't trade pawns. So she trades pawns, takes. It's a draw. Oh my god. So she takes instead on H5. You played A5. And now she takes, and you take. Now she needs to sack her bishop. She can't do it? Are you serious? Oh, she doesn't know about the wrong bishop. Oh my god. It's like playing... What was that? It was like the Japanese guy. Yoshihari Habu, who was 2300. He didn't know about opposite. He didn't know about like bishops in the wrong color rook pawn. Holy shit. So she doesn't realize if she makes your pawn great again, it's a draw. Oh my god. Jesus Christ. So all she has to do is play H4 and it's a draw. Oh my god. That's just sick, man. It's definitely like a 3-year-old. That's a G pawn. Wow. I can't believe you lost to them before. That's so crazy, isn't it? Like how people can be pretty good and not know something really, really fundamental. I would think like even intuitively you might be able to figure that out over the board, even without knowing it, you know. It's always better to have a rook pawn. Man, Nefedov, wow, dude. That was an impressive conversion there at the end. Alright. Schumacher and Sung Prism. Last games for today. Schumacher is white against yours truly. I hate that button. Alright. Last game for today. Last 2 games for today. Thank you, Nefedov. It wasn't a swindle. I mean, really. He didn't try to swindle. Swindle's like when you actively try to swindle someone. His opponent was just, you know, a modern chess player. A modern tournament chess player. That's not the same as a swindle. When you have, like, your opponent is just incompetent, you know, in some way, it's not a swindle. So I was black here, and I'm experimenting with this exchange Philidor type of approach to the old Indian. I've never, like, seriously studied this, and, you know, I was not sure what I was going to do. I just get really tired of him playing, oh, that's really weird, actually. I didn't credit Schumacher with this, but over the board, you know, he's played d5 every other game against me. This is the first or second time he's played knight f3. So he's actually actively learning still, in his mid-20s. To be fair, like d5, it's not that bad. It's been played against me a lot, even by masters. But I think knight f3 is like clearly white's best move. But it took him a while to figure this out. Anyways, this is not the best move. Like, pawn takes pawn is strategically dubious, and I know that. But I'm playing the player, not the position. So now g6 still might be black's best move, transposing to a king's Indian. Bishop e7. Queen takes probably is a move. Shaki, I had a similar game against with white. I had a similar position against last year World Senior against Heinrich Danielson, but it was different because black's our knights were back on like g1 and g8. So I you can use the idea of queen takes d4. It's not as common here. Basically, the idea with queen takes d4 would be probably to follow up with queen d2 and play b3 and bishop b2. Yeah, so the general idea of taking with the queen, exists. But as you can see, in this position, it was only played once in 82 games. Like my game with Heinrich Danielson was like d4, d6, c4, e5, and I played knight c3, allowing it, and then takes, queen takes, and then normally black would play knight c6, but he was like tricky and played this against me, which is like a specialty move. But eventually my queen goes back to d2, and then I try to do like b3 or whatever. The reverse math teacher. Is it though? Is it? No. The math teacher is e4, c5, d4, c takes d4, queen takes d4. That's the true math teacher. Alright, but anyway, I just wanted to play an open game. I was sick of him like sticking me in closed positions, so I played bishop e7. Now, I also like g3. G3 is a good move. Generally, in the g3 type of positions, hard to put pressure on the c4 pawn. Here, what's he gonna do? That's usually the weak point in white's setup, but e4 is classical. So you could call this, I guess, it's a Philidor, it's an old Indian, I don't know. So check it out. There's shockingly, only 14 games where this has been played. Some creative guys, Bortnik, Gallego, and Ochotnik. Who else? I was surprised I got a good position. He played bishop d3. Wow, Stavargan gifted his tier 1 sub to Shaki. Yeah, that's right. You're both in NATO. That's right. NATO brothers. Look out for each other. Stavargan's not in NATO yet, but he's getting closer. Alright, NATO brothers. We're all NATO brothers here. Except for Schumacher. It's anti-NATO. Rook e8. I'm playing like it's a exchange Philidor. Just the pawn is on c4 instead of c2. Castles. Shockingly, there's like no games. I mean, it's a totally normal position if you think about it. From the perspective of exchange Philidor, this looks exactly like it would be standard. So here I have a lot of options. I don't know, but I make a mistake. I just want to say, like, I don't really know how to play the black side of the Philidor. So and I think this move is bad. Bishop g5. It's not terrible, but it's like, what's the point? You're not threatening anything. This exchange of bishops will be good for me. At the board, I was like, I don't like knight d7, knight f5. Or, at the board, whatever. While we were playing the game, I said, okay, it does, keeps knight f5. Frankly, g6 is an option. Knight a6 is an option. That I like best, probably. This way we develop the knight, and we don't interfere with our bishop's protection of f5. But over the board, I played a weird move now that I had the feeling this probably isn't right. I mean, also, like, h6 isn't terrible. You have the Capablanca Lasker kind of thing with crawling around knight h7 in the Steinitz. But this move feels wrong. Like, I would be happy if I were white here. I think I would play bishop f4, probably. Bishop f4 seems, aren't the knights on the side useless? Well, your knights on the side are useless, but they're just there temporarily. You have to think long term. You know, I mean, I play knight a6. Knight's headed toward the center, but, you know, it's got to get there somehow. Knight stuck on the side permanently might be useless, but the point is, like, that hopefully it won't be. You know, it's got to get to the center somehow. Knight g4, and then bishop d2. You know, so I don't think this is as good as f4. I mean, f4 is better. It protects h2. It puts pressure on this. If bishop f6, he can play knight f3 or knight e2. So I think that white has a static advantage with space. But this is not the greatest square for his bishop. And now bishop f6, knight f3, and then knight a6, and then a3. Yeah, I don't know what he should do now. I think that white is better, but I don't know what the best move is. Maybe a3 is okay. It also kind of weakens his pawns. Knight c5, bishop c2. I played a5. He plays h3. I go to e5, and he plays knight e5. I mean, this move can't be good. This literally has to be a mistake. So why does white want to... Even h3. Let's start with h3. Why play h3? Why play h3 here? I mean, you're just going to chase me into the center. Talking about knights on the side are bad. White has to try to find some sort of constructive move in this position. There has to be something better than h3. I mean, rook b1, maybe threatening to play b4, looks reasonable. Rook e1, I don't know. We weaken the square a little bit. Truthfully, there aren't that many options. Alright, so h3 here, and then this gives up d4, and then allows me to fix my pawn to put it on e5, so we're symmetrical. To be fair, like, this move needs to be considered. Bishop takes e5. But I was concerned, I guess I didn't like f4. That doesn't really work, though. I have this and take the pawn. Maybe it does work. Okay, I can win a pawn here. It looks like white has some compensation. But he doesn't have to play f4 either. Maybe rook e1. But anyway, you see, like, white is still a little better. I thought after this I had a good position. Now, I kind of underestimated him here. You know, I thought, okay, everything's fine. I'm completely fine. And then on bishop e3, I feel like my plan was to play this. And then I realized there was some kind of problem. I don't know. There's this possibility, and there's the possibility of knight a4. And I don't know if either one is all that serious, to be honest. I think that truthfully the position is about equal. White shouldn't be better. Yeah, the computer says it's equal. The computer thinks that black is like fractionally better. 0.1 advantage to black, or 0, you know, between 0 and 0.1. But I wanted to, like, I was kind of greedy. Yeah, queen b6 is interesting. didn't have it though because of knight a4. Oh, pawn b6, pawn b6. No, pawn b6 is possible. I thought about it. No, pawn b6. No, I thought about it. It's just that it does weaken my structure slightly. I guess my objection was b4, and then rook a1, queen a1. Every time you move a pawn, the pawn can't move backwards, so said pawn becomes more of like a long-term liability. This pawn is more forward now, so it's also... Yeah, but to be fair, like b6 was possible. I decided to play bishop e7, and I'm thinking like there's nothing that can possibly go wrong here. I'm just trying to stabilize my position, play a4 if possible. And then out of the blue, he's like playing this crazy move, queen h5. I was like, what is that? You know, he sees the pieces more than the pawns, so Schumacher doesn't pay enough attention to like pawn play, but he just sees like his pieces are sort of pointed in this direction. You know, so this is like he sees this configuration, and my instant reaction was to like play g6 or something, but my pawn is hanging, you know. This is going to be a sacrifice. So I was like, shit, what am I going to do? I don't really want to play f6. Although it should be considered, to be fair, f6 may not be a bad move, you know. So it's like really hard to decide what black should play now. I wasn't sure. In fact, no, it's very hard to decide. He has pressure on f7. So I decided to play bishop f8 and not weaken my pawns, and he plays f4, which I expected. But I mean, this is very risky strategically. You're breaking against the strong point, you know, which is e5, and in general, that should be like the last resort. But he doesn't have another resort, you know. I mean, I guess his other resort is like b4, c5, and just try to gain space on the queen side. But this move compromises white's position structurally, so you're facing like very serious problems there. So it's the question is like, you know, is the cure worse than the disease? Does the damage to his pawn structure, you know, justify his active pieces and stuff? So here I hesitated. I wanted to take on f4, but then I saw like my knight is hanging, I think. I just wasn't sure what was happening. I might have this move. You know, after g6, his queen can't stay. His queen can't stay in connection with the c5. So probably this works, actually. I could have just taken. Maybe he would have just taken with a rook and then threatened this. But again, I can play g6 when I want to. It's not that clear. It was a fast-ish game. What was this? Simul game? I guess it was a simul game. Okay. g6 here. Yeah. And then I realized, like, this situation is so great, you know, suddenly I have a real issue. And then f5 becomes a thing. So he's not only threatening to take, you know, I think this was like the critical moment really in the game where I had a good game. I was probably a little better. And then I have to solve this practical situation over the board. If I had realized I had this, maybe I would have done it. There's also this diagonal though. It's just still not a big deal. I mean, if e5, g6, he doesn't have anything. What is he going to do? You know, if he takes on c5, I have g6. He's got nothing there. So I could have just taken on f4. And if anything, g6. It just doesn't look that good for him. Computer, okay, gives him rook d1 in between move. Dead equal after queen e7. But under no circumstances am I worse here. But I managed to find a way to be worse. I played g6, he plays queen f3, and now he's better coordinated. Now it's not a joke suddenly. It's like I helped him coordinate his queen and his rook or something. And now pawn takes, queen takes. See, this is better. His queen isn't just randomly sitting on h5. So now I have to go here. And we expected rook d1. I expected him to play rook d1 or something. No big deal. I can move my queen, e7. Maybe even b8. Everything's okay, but he comes up with this like crazy sacrifice, you know, which is just not sound. It's not sound, but it's complex. And it's like exactly a kind of desperate thing. Like, I don't think he should do it, objectively. It's kind of ironic, right? White has to have a better move. Like, what's wrong with e5? Is knight d3 a problem? Maybe knight d3. I'm not sure. I mean, there's also this. I could get into a lot of trouble very quickly here with black. If I'm not careful. If I make one misstep, my king side is like toast. But he does this insanity, you know. I mean, I have more time. So, takes... And now, you know, normally you would expect taking toward the center. In fact, I don't know why White would not take toward the center, to be honest. I guess he felt this pawn would be, maybe he felt his pawn would be more vulnerable. This seems much more natural. I thought I was winning, you know, but that doesn't mean I'm going to find the best continuation. And I realized I can sacrifice a piece back. I mean, the first thing I thought of was probably like bishop takes d5. So bishop takes d5, pawn d5, queen d5. I'm still protecting f7. But, you know, this is not ideal. I mean, clearly. My queen is the only thing between me and, like, getting mated. So it's an extremely dangerous position for black. I don't need to sacrifice the piece back. But I went a little too far here, maybe. I don't remember what the computer says. I think f5 was good. So I offered the piece back right away. Maybe I do have to sacrifice the piece back. Okay, f5. Here. This is a shocking move. I expected him to take. You know, I'm like, okay. He's not crazy. He's going to take this back. Oh, bishop c7, rook d1. Interesting. Oh, so you're saying like cd5? Uh-huh. cd5, ed5, bishop d5, rook d1. Sure there is. But I won a pawn. No. No, I didn't win a pawn. That's true, you have rook d1. But I have queen e7, no? Oh, now you have bishop. Well, it's complex. Okay. Yeah, I have queen e7. Threatening queen takes c3, check. So now you have bishop takes c5, and that's check. Haha! Did I refute it? Rook d1. Not clear, but I don't think he needs it anyway, you know. So I play f5. I expect him to take the piece back. Instead, he's like a raving lunatic, a drooling noob. Somebody like I saw in the opening Explorer today. Drooling noob. What's the refutation of the sack is the question. Well, I don't know if there is a refutation of his sack. You know, I think it's just a question of like various moves that are maybe slightly better for black. I don't think I can like refute it, like totally outright refute it. I think that it's like it's one of those things like we saw earlier in the stream where white does a sacrifice that isn't necessary. It just complicates the position. probably with less time he shouldn't do this. You know, it's just like a crazy thing to do. My recommendation to you is to complicate when you have more time. The opponent doesn't have enough time, but not complicate when you have less time than the opponent. So c takes d5, e takes d5, f5, and I didn't stop. I may probably have a better move here instead of f5. f5 is a little weakening, but I knew that it was okay. I mean, at the end of the day, he has like a bishop pair after pawn takes. But I have the Zoltan Ribley, like Skaveninga and king side. I mean, this holds up pretty well against a light square bishop. He's going to need some heavy artillery, like sacking a bishop on f5 or playing g4 to break in, and by that time, you know, I'm going to get some play. So it wasn't even in my mind that he would continue to sacrifice a piece here. He plays rook a e1. If anything, I probably looked at like rook d1, but I figured, okay, I'll play bishop f7, then he'll like sack on f5, and then I'll take his bishop or something. You know, this. I'm sorry. Let me put that variation back in there. Like, just for example, imagine if he like tried to sack on f5 and I just like refuted it by rook takes e3. Just not sure if this works, but I'll take 3 pieces for a rook, you know. So it's not so easy for him, but he does this psycho move, and then at this point I think the computer said bishop f7. The rook on the a file is useless. Well, no, he's logically getting his rook in the game. Oh, you mean my rook? Black's rook has been useless for a long time. There's always rook a6. The question is what I should play now, and I saw, you know, bishop takes f5, so this idea was in my mind and it bothered me, although it probably shouldn't. I decided to put my bishop on d7 instead, although that's good enough, let's say. I think bishop f7 was best, according to the computer. Bishop d7, keeping f5 better protected. He plays, you know, g4 is possible, right? He plays this, and then at this point I was maybe a little overconfident, I don't know. If I had it to do over with, I mean, I don't know. I have no square. I have no here, no here, no here, no here. I have nowhere to put my queen. The rook a6 idea hadn't occurred to me. But that's actually a really good idea. But the main thing is he has b4. You know, he has the b4 and he has this like rolling queen side. So the point is, if I can play a4, I can just like end him. You know, like he's got nothing after that. Then I'm playing rook a6. This is like laterally defending. I'm just blockading the whole thing and I'm up a piece. You know, it's over. Now he plays g4. Totally like, you know, down to his last hope. And I guess I kind of freaked out here. But it's like a little scary. I might have to allow a pretty scary situation. I guess the scariest would be like bishop c3, queen d4, and he's on the diagonal, which is what happened in the game. Obviously, if I take here, I get checkmated, which is not good. But we got to look at stuff like g5. You know, g5 is radical, but very forcing, and it's not clear like where his queen goes after that. Probably maybe f2. But also, let's say I make a random move and he plays like pawn takes pawn. I can always play g5, maybe trying to sacrifice a pawn to just keep the lines closed. Thanks, Sun Prism, subscribing tier 1. You're next. But a funny thing happened next. You know, he plays g4, and then I was frustrated by the fact that I couldn't get my queen in the game. I really wanted to play one of these like moves to get my queen active. I thought about queen h4, and then really just not sure why I rejected this move. I don't think I had a good reason for rejecting it. There's no refutation of queen h4. I mean, it gets in the way, and it hovers around his king side. I don't know why I rejected it. I really am not sure. It's threatening queen h3. I think he has to play like... Well, actually, I don't know. Well, king g2 probably. I would assume, I guess he would play king g2, just defending the h3 pawn. Well, in retrospect, I should have played it. I don't know why I talked myself out of playing it. And I played this stupid move that was like attacking e1, you know. Well, that's really hard to defend against. He can't trap my queen on h4. He's down a piece, first of all. You know, it's not like he has an extra knight wandering around. There's pressure on the e-file. We're facing off here. His light square bishop is kind of dead. His other bishop can attack the queen, but the h3 is hanging, you know, so... And he can't just drop that, so... He really needs to play king g2 and just... hope that he's okay. He can't trap my queen. I mean, it looks like, yeah, it could get trapped in some scenarios where he had another piece, like a knight or something. It could even draw back to h6, actually. So he plays bishop c3. Queen a5 was my biggest blunder. He plays queen there. Bishop c3, sorry. But the point was I thought I had queen b6. This is the funniest part of the game, right? Like, I play queen b6, I'm like, look, your king is in... Your king is on the diagonal, and I'm blockading the d6 pawn. And obviously, like here, I have queen d6. Something like that. I mean, to be fair, you know, even this is not that bad for him, maybe. It was a stupid plan. I mean, queen a5 was just a really stupid plan. And I was just panicking too early. And I always say queen a5 is always bad. I mean, this is the best example ever of a bad queen a5. My queen is out of play. It's on. Talk about knights on the side of the board. You know what's worse than a knight on the side of the board is the queen on the side of the board. Because with the knight on the side of the board, you're sidelining 3 points of material. With the queen on the side of the board, you're sidelining 9, you know. This is seriously. b4 would be a good move. Except for en passant capture. You need to familiarize yourself with that rule. And make sure you can legally play it. If it wasn't for the en passant capture, b4 would be a strong move. But this move, like, just wins by force. I also have problems making legal en passant captures. So the funny thing that happened was this happened, and he just goes here, and I thought I had a discovery. But then I realized, like, my queen was hanging. Now, I saw this, but suddenly, like, I can't move my knight. I thought, oh yeah, surely I have a square to move my knight to. But no. This is covered, this is covered. So I can't do a discovery, like offering a trade of queens or whatever. I'm just dead. Not dead, like technically I was not dead, but things spiral out of control now. So I play king f7, he plays pawn takes pawn. And then I mean, I'm getting roasted, so I have to do this. And now, like, technically, this is insane. I think that technically the computer says this is a draw, if I remember correctly. That this position is equal. Like, somehow, with best play, black still has a draw here. But you got to give white credit for this move, rook e6. It's a really nice move, you know. This is a fantastic move. Now he has at least perpetual check. but probably more. And now bishop takes, queen check. Queen check takes double check here, and now he finds the instant mate in 2. I was hoping for like rook f7 when I could slip away to the other side, but he doesn't let me. So I only have d6 and it's mate in 1. Yeah, that reminded me of another game that Schumacher played against me, where also it was sacrifices in the middle of the board with no time. You know, what's interesting though, if you look at the clock here, look at White's clock, what's really strange about it was this. Watch White's clock and watch Black's clock. I have 7 minutes to 2. I'm winning. I have 6 minutes to 1. I'm winning. I have 5 minutes to 1. I'm winning. And then all of a sudden, he's just like, doesn't use any time. He used no time, and I'm using time. He's using no time. I'm using time. He's using time now. He used time on pawn takes f5. The only move he used time on. And then g5, and now this move. He got his increment back. But here he used, 0 time. He can play very quickly. Alright, last game. So thanks for the resub from Sung Prism. That's such an intuitive name, it's so easy to remember. Professor Sung. Alright. Yeah, it's just on the tip of my tongue all the time. I'm trying to remember Sung Prism. Sung Prism. Sung Prism versus Acerbate. Oh, you might want to take the little ones and hide them in a cupboard somewhere before we watch this game. This is intended for mature audiences only. No, Acerbate, alright. E4, C5, knight f3, knight c6. Do you guys want to see something crazy? Here, maybe anyone who plays E4 will be interested in this. The other day I was playing a game, and I played white, and I was talking about this, but I played D4. What about you, move 11 or someone? Pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn. My opponent plays E5, right? And so normally when you play E5, it's either the Lowenthal or a Kalashnikov. But I play knight b5, my opponent just plays knight f6, and I'm like, dude, what's up with this? Check this out. There's 100 games in the freaking opening export. Nobody plays this move order for black. I've literally never had anyone do this, but it's why, It's I was trying to refute an unrefutable position. I'm sitting there what can I do to take advantage of this move order? There's nothing. It's just a transposition to the Sveshnikov. There's nothing you can do. I couldn't believe it. I've never even had this happen. No one does it. Look at that position. 6,521 games with D6. 1,143 games with A6 and 114 games with knight f6. Somebody explain to me why that is like that. How the heck there's only 100 games where this has even ever happened. It just doesn't even make sense. It's the secret move order for the Sveshnikov. I literally spent 3 minutes trying to figure out whether I'm an idiot or what, I found this odd variation. What was it? Bishop g5, d6, bishop takes f6. No, it wasn't this. It must have been something else. I'm thinking I found something unusual. A6, no. Black doesn't have a choice there. But anyway, like, I'm just saying, like, it's crazy. Like, there's no bishop g5, bishop e7. But e7 is bad. It's just bad. But I just don't understand, like, how the heck you have a position where there's 3 moves that are completely okay for black. And, well, one of them is completely not that okay, but playable, the Lowenthal, right? d6 and knight f6 are both fine, yet only 100 games played with one, whereas, like, okay, there's no independent value, but still. I don't understand. The original Yevgeny Sveshnikov, yeah, well, this is just a move order transposition. It's so bizarre. I really don't know if it ever had a single blitz game where the move order was played. I was still, like, in a state of shock here as to how this is possible, you know. It looks like Sveshnikov himself did it back in the 70s. Maybe it's out of fashion. Anyways, I mean, the normal Sveshnikov, people play knight f6 first, and then on knight c3, black plays e5. This is like a forgotten move order. It's so weird, you know. There's nothing wrong with this. You just play knight f6 and you transpose. I mean, what can white do? Like c4, sacking a pawn? No. There's not even alternative or anything that white could do. Literally nothing. There's no even questionable attempt at refuting the move order. It's completely just the same thing. There's just no way you could possibly explain how there's 6,000 games with d6 and 100 games with knight f6 when both moves are equally viable. Look at this. The computer... I mean, you could honestly make a case... I think you could make a case that knight f6 is better than d6. Because d6 allows the Marazzi type of setup. And knight f6 puts pressure on e4. So if we let this go a little harder, knight f6 bishop g5, knight f6 bishop g5, knight f6 bishop g5. Then there's like the Mr. Slow attack, bishop c5. Now this is getting some coverage. So I never had this position. Mr. Slow's move order is different. Wow. Dude, that's weird. There's no games here. Mr. Slow, are you out there? Got a new variation for you. Oh, this was the line, guys. This is the line. This is crazy, right? Here, d6, bishop takes f6, queen f6, threatening mate in 1, knight c7 check, no games. Check this out. Totally, and I'm sure there's like lichess games. Totally never before seen variation of the Sicilian. King d8, and now there's a fork. So I have to play f3. f3, rook b8, unclear. Is it possible that queen e2 is better? No, dude. Queen e2 blunder, Uber driver. You're blundering a pawn. You can't play queen e2. You have to play f3. This is insane. Rook b8. And now queen e2. I mean, this if like 2,600 players knew about this, they would play it. It's a fresh position. It's interesting, you know. Just that nobody plays this move order at all in the first place, so they're not discovering it. Yeah, it's something worth trying for black, actually, Uber driver. This is interesting as well. Bishop e4 check. It's been played by Iescas back in 93. Wow. There's 2 games. Iescas even beat Lambertol with it and then never played it again. Hey, I think I'll beat like a 2600 and never play it again. That's crazy. Sandypan just... What is that? Knight on 1, c3. I don't know what this is. This is something weird. But bishop c5 is definitely interesting. Volodar Immersion. Shigayev. See, there are a couple games. Chababala beat this guy who's supposed to be on my team, although I've never seen him in my life. Anyway, this is really interesting stuff. It's not anything to do with Sung Prism's game. Sung Prism played g3. And nothing wrong with that, right? I'm going to turn off the engine. I don't know why g3 always makes me want to like play d5 or something for black. It's not a good move. I mean, I think the best spot for g3 is like against e6. But your opponent plays d6, so Astrobay plays d6. Astrobay has a habit of playing d6 when it's not necessary. You know what the best thing about not playing d6 is? You didn't play d6. Astrobay, like seriously, why would you play d6 here? Why not g6? You always play g6. g6 is standard. We just had a discussion today about playing d5 in one move in the Accelerated Dragon. Why is it beneficial to commit yourself to d6 when you could just play g6 and decide later what to do? You know, this move is inaccurate. Halloween Gambit, 2600 bullet. I think Shockey is 2600 bullet. But another weird thing happens here. Like, Astrobay plays bishop g4. What's going on? Like, you never do that. Astrobay, why would you play a setup? You just never ever do, like, bishop g4 type of setups. This is a very surprising move from him. It may be a fine move, but it's like totally not a configuration that Astrobay ever plays. Paul McIntyre versus Luis Belliard, 2007. P-Mac used to play this against me, this King's Indian crap. Yeah, not very aggressive for white, but alright. Bishop g4 is playable. Luis Belliard. I think it's like a Dominican guy, if I remember. He used to play in the New York Open. I don't know if I played him. Alright, bishop g4, h3. And now, having said A, bishop h5, I think it makes some sense here. You know, I mean, if white has to play like g4, he is weakening his king side quite a bit. You know, I think that you can seriously consider playing bishop to h5, so long as you haven't played e5, you know, and the possibility of playing e6. You haven't like given up the d5 square. But this is not recommended. If you must retreat on this diagonal, you should go to d7. Astrobay, this is outside the pawn chain. These are the pawns, and that's outside where it's not safe. Bishops, rooks, they want to be like behind the pawn chain where it's safe. You're leaving your, you know, it's part of your family. You're leaving him outside Would you leave your dog outside on the doorstep rather than let him in, before night comes and the zombies start like crashing at the door? Why would you leave your bishop on the doorstep? I mean, you wouldn't like kick your dog out. H5 isn't as bad because in order to exploit this, he has to play G4, which is gonna commit him to making more pawn weaknesses. So at least we get something. But if you're gonna retreat, go back to D7. I mean, I'd give you like bishop E6 might be okay. In some cases, if you've played H6 and like he can't go to G5, this could end up being an issue. Okay, it's provocative. Castles and now this. I have no comment about this move. Call the FBI. I mean, sorry. I want to talk to my lawyer. I don't take responsibility for this move as a chess coach, Aspade knows he's not supposed to do stuff like this, and then he like continues to do it anyway. If I were white, I would not play A3, but maybe play knight to C3. Try to, leave it on B4 for a time. To be honest, you've got a pretty nasty wing gambit here. What about A3 and B4? Shaki, any comments, questions? How do you feel about the wing gambit? Whatever happened to Aldous, though? That looks like a pretty damn dangerous wing gambit to me. I don't like the look of this for black. It's just like black has no development, It's a good wing gambit, anyway. Yeah, I mean, D4 is possible, too. I mean, that's obviously not bad. D4 takes, knight takes. And this is why, your bishop should be on D7. Now you have to play bishop D7, losing a tempo. Or put your bishop in a further... This is what he would do. He would put his bishop in a further exposed position where it can lose more time. Now after rook E1, we're facing B3. Further loss of time. Till the bishop's like driven out to A6 where it's completely out of play. Astrabate's hope is that like this will happen. His bishop can be driven like completely out of play to an absolutely irrelevant position on the side of the board. If everything goes well, maybe I'll get my bishop driven back to like off the side of the board or something. So knight b4, a3, knight a6 here. And this is obviously like not bad. But I just sense like we're kind of wasting a little bit of time in playing both of these pawn moves. It doesn't feel that dynamic. Yeah, so don't know if this is really justified though. I think that black's pretty busted. I told you like knight g5 was going to happen at some point. Oh, maybe it's not that bad though. Yeah, true. I mean, you can go back. Maybe it's not that bad. So scholars meet. Shocking, no picking on the more amateur players. D4, C takes D. Yeah, this isn't that exciting for white, You didn't like really refute black's position outright. I think C3 was too hesitant, but A3 also. I have a crazy suggestion to do like B4, sack this pawn and play D4, but this has got to be going too far. You know, I think this is going too far. But it feels like black's almost okay now. Now he's absolutely okay. You could have tried various moves. I mean, knight d4 is fine. If here, b3. This doesn't look good for black. Now suddenly white's in trouble. And maybe we have to consider drastic measures. We're gonna have to sacrifice something. It's just an exchange, no big deal. f6. You played f6 here. Asterby played f6 here. Good God, man. You have big issues, but you're up the exchange, and you choose to play f6 in this position. I mean, if anything, maybe h6. h6 with the idea of, like, seriously, preventing knight g5, but also g5, possibly. And then, like, bishop g7. You could possibly get your pieces out with h6. So h6, queen a1, g5, or even just g6. b4, bishop g7, you know, and you're on the diagonal. And then eventually knight f6, and you're developed. But f6 is catastrophic, especially for this piece. Pawn diamond, right? You need to find a configuration where all of your pieces are getting out, you know? f6 blocks your bishop even worse. h6 stops knight g5. We can play g5 and knight f6. Have I showed you guys my anti-Smith-Morra, the 1-9? Which is kind of funny. You can do this in the Smith-Morra. This is a really weird line, but I think it's interesting. Knight f3, and then if you want to freak people out, you play d6, and then on bishop c4 you play bishop d7. I'm sure there's other ways of doing this, but basically the idea is what this guy did. You do h6 against the Smith-Morra. Just bishop d7, knight c6, d6, and h6. Stopping knight g5, and then you're going to play g5 in most cases. It's like a Grob, totally playable Grob versus the Smith-Morra. If you knew the Grob defense versus Smith-Morra, you would have been familiar with this idea. Alright, so, but f6 is a catastrophe. It's a really bad move. You're blocking your knight and your bishop. You know, Uber Driver, you raised an interesting point. I almost mentioned it. This is a good suggestion as well. After bishop e3, knight takes, knight bd2, queen d7, king h2, black play f6. He could go here. I was wondering about this, seriously. Is there any sense in doing that? Is that what you meant? Well, yeah, but this is still a price. You know, if you give up the bishop for the knight, you're making a minor exchange. So you're saying what? Now the e-pawn can move for black, right? You can actually develop your pieces. I mean, Uber Driver is going to fall for the cheapo, like bishop e5 here, knight e5. No, I mean, you have a point. I mean, black's development is really nowhere to be seen. Netog's here. Wait. Netog, I thought I remember you from somewhere. Wait, didn't you used to be a supporter of the stream? Anyway, f6 is horrible. That's the worst move of the day. F6. Astrobate, I think you stole that from your opponent who played... You know what it is? He learned from his opponent who played like knight f3, f6 against him. He's like, I want to try that myself. I think that's a good idea, Wendy. I'm going to play f6. And then my 3M... It's terrible. Takes, but now white misses the key. Maybe you should take the white square bishop. You should take this first, check, and then on queen f7 you can check him again on the other side and force him over to d8, and then then you have everything, like queen here, rook c8, rook takes a1. Black is devastated in this position. Up the exchange and completely lost. But I think this is an inaccuracy. Black could have played bishop f7. This was a big mistake. You should have chopped that guy first, Sung Prism. If you take on e6, he has to take back. Then you check. But now you've got his white square bishop. So if he moves his king or whatever, that's fine too. This bishop is totally shut in. It's like a, latchkey child or whatever. Then by process of elimination, the other pieces are all shut in. I'll take white here, obviously. You've got no pawns for the exchange, but a virtually winning position. This is a beautiful position for white. +2. Yes, more than +2. I mean, if black plays like a computer, they can put up some resistance. But most people would just fold very quickly within 10 moves here. So queen h5 check. Asked me, why didn't you play bishop f7, man? Here, okay. And now give him a second chance to take the bishop. And now you played rook g8. Don't give him your bishop. Did you get a permission slip to do that? Unbelievable. Oh no, there goes the A pawn. There was no need to lose that. Ask me, what's up with your bishop on f8? Jesus. It's not a bishop, it's a pawn. f4 is kind of risky. Safer to play h4. This also enhances our white square bishop. Okay, it would give him rook g4. But I don't think it's even a big deal, honestly. f4 is good too. f4 is good too, but I mean, you are weakening like the g3 square. Prefer not to do that. This is totally crushing now. Now it's over. But I mean, from my perspective, like the critical moment, this is just desperation. Critical moment was really that bishop f7. Astrobate's last chance. Practically speaking, his last chance was on queen h5 check. You got to consider like bishop for knight as a material advantage, in a vacuum. The position is already very close. You have serious strategic problems. Your bishop is going to be difficult to even get out at all. The other bishop, your other pawn. And, bishop f7 gains a tempo as well and doesn't forfeit your right to castle. There's like 10 reasons to play this move. So I think once you don't play that, it's over. Yeah, you're winning. You're winning after bishop f7. Wow. That's hard to believe. The engine actually thinks black's winning here. For me, that's a little exaggerated. Wow. So Sung Prism got caught like being too cocky. Because you have e5. Oh no, and then like black saves the piece. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, all he had to do was take on e6, and he's like winning. Yeah, bishop f7. But first of all, f6 is a catastrophe. What about my h6? Computer doesn't like h6 because of knight d4. Maybe you saw this, you didn't like it. Still better than f6. But g6, knight d4, bishop g7. Still, you got to make sure you don't block your own pieces in from developing, Astrobate. Good game. Alright, Sun Prism, nice job. Guys, it's late. Thanks to Marchea for the raid today, and thanks you guys for the gift subs. We're going to be back. Don't forget to support the stream. We've only got 2 days to go. I'm supposed to get to 700. I'm going to have to get like a discount chair and discount glasses now. 2 days to go. We didn't overshoot our fundraising goal because Nils inflated it by 200. So I still need $85 to get my chair and glasses. I still need $666. Anyway, guys. All right. It was nice to see Nedog, though. We are going to be back. For those of you who are regulars, like Stapvargan and Nedog, if you guys aren't here for roll call, you get like demerit points. You lose your status. The Kalashnikov himself. There's no connection between. Interesting story though. There was a chess player named Kalashnikov, but my understanding was that he wasn't that strong. And I'm not sure if the name is actually named after the guy or the gun. I don't really get the whole... What are you drinking? Grape juice. I don't get the whole Kalashnikov opening name thing. Nedog. I don't know. I have to drink like really, really cheap beverages because no one donates to the stream. It's like that corner liquor store that, most people are afraid to go to because they might get mugged. When I used to live on the Orange Line, remember? I lived on the Orange Line. I don't know if you were over my place when I lived in Jamaica playing. But there was this like corner liquor store. They had like at Forest Hills or where did I live? Was it Forest Hills? I can't even remember now. But there was this like corner liquor store next to the tea, where they had to have like bulletproof glass inside and stuff. I used to like buy like whatever the cheapest stuff they had there was. $2 wine. Yeah, basically. Something like that. Yeah. It was more like $4 wine, actually. Approximately $4. But, yeah, you're in the right ballpark. Muscatel. Alright, guys. Happy holidays, and we'll be back Friday morning. And I'm gonna do. You know what I'm gonna do? I can't go out this weekend because I have things. Maybe we'll do a team battle on Saturday. We'll see. So I'm thinking about doing the team battle Saturday like we did a few weeks ago. The team scrimmage battle. Pawn to team versus Kraken battle. And then I'll try to do New Year's simul, even though, it's New Year's. It'll just be till 10 p.m. It won't interfere with my New Year resolution or anything like that. So we'll see you guys this weekend. All right, happy holidays, friends. Thanks for your support, and I will see you Friday, Saturday, possibly Sunday. Have a great weekend and great New Year's, guys. Bye-bye.